run this just like we did last week. Okay, which too, I mean, except for that one little addition, there's nothing that's going to change, right?
Right.
You got anything to add or?
Nope, we're already streaming.
Okay.
Oh shoot, I didn't pick the thing.
Let me get the multitude of paperwork I've got here. Did you have a good vacation?
Yeah, it was great. Hey Chris. Hey Jonas. Oh, sorry. Well, you can always catch us on the archive.
Samantha Lee.
Yeah, Chris has got to go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I had a late start
You're
from work.
incredibly loud when you talk to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I had to deafen you before you went. Okay. Give me a second. Just chair lower than normal.
You can. Do you
Well, it
know how
doesn't
to
matter.
operate one of those things?
No, I've never
Okay.
used a chair.
Well, there's this thing
I
on
know
the side.
Boat. Don't start with me. God. You know, I'm not going to put up with baloney tonight, Bo.
Okay,
You better be nice to
I'll
me.
go easy on you.
Let me turn my
seriously,
phone off.
you put it
I
up.
know, it's
Don't-
okay. I'll let you be the big man.
I'm not used to that.
Hold on a second. I need to stop for 1 second.
Hey, Brittle, no, we're just getting started, man. We're just getting started. Hey, Seb. Pishbot, you're back with a proper name this time. Hey, Adam. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Pixels.
We have a crisis here.
Uh-oh.
It's not Teresa this time.
Well, that's good. At least it's a faraway crisis.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
Just give me 1 minute.
So here are the, put this on close up here. Look at these guys. These are the world's leading designers of video games. They look like fine, upstanding young men. I'd love to live in a world where Grand Prix and Barnstorming were coming this spring. That sounds like a better lineup than anything that's coming out this spring now.
Just give me 1 second. I'm
Okay.
sorry. This is beyond my ability to do anything about it.
We are going to do ARG Presents first. We've got
what's going on?
Dragster all set up here.
Are you at my house?
And
Okay, thank God. 'Cause
we've got
down.
we're gonna do Dune for Amigos, so should be a good 1-2 punch, and then we'll do a post show after that where we'll talk some random stuff.
Okay.
Pixels, that should have been the first thing they taught you in developer school. You got to have a sweet beard and possibly some glasses with amazingly huge frames on them. And also a shirt with a very wide collar. It's essential, and no tie.
I'll have the ringer off. Just drop me a note. All right. Bye bye. Yeah. Okay, but crisis.
Hey, Henrik.
Really averted.
Oh, that's great.
I'm gonna have a house guest this weekend. Apparently.
Is Leroy coming?
Well, Leroy's upset about Shay.
But we were all buddies.
Yeah, so it sucks.
Yeah.
So ARG. I got it.
Yeah, Brutal, you got enough beard for everybody in the chat room. Jeez, I almost knocked that over.
That would have been
Hilarious to watch the computer go up in smoke.
Would have been interesting, that's for sure. Hi guys, sorry I had to get off work late tonight, so it's been one of those days.
All right, see you, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
I feel like that's just a little bit too big. There we go. That's perfect. All right, so remember,
Rutabaga.
You're running the show.
Yeah, you just give me the high sign.
Okay. Well, let's see. You're right.
Testing.
Do that again.
Rutabaga.
Okay, let me do Rutabaga. Rutabaga.
Oh, sorry. I just like to do it.
Rutabaga. How's that possible? I'm like way low. Maybe I should just not use my rutabaga voice too often.
Is that what that was? Your big boy voice?
Yeah.
Your announcer's voice?
My teacher's voice. Okay, so here we go. I think levels look pretty okay. Maybe my level can come up just a little bit. Why don't you talk normally for a while?
I'm always loud and obnoxious. I'm loud and obnoxious, man.
All right, that looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, so I'll give you the cue.
Cue, cue.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of ARG Presents. I'm Amigo Aaron, joined, as always, by my identical twin brother of another mother, John Boat of Car Schaller.
Howdy, howdy.
What's a good word, Boat?
I'm ready to talk about some Atari 2600 video games.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, if you'll recall, in last week's episode, we spun the retro roulette wheel, and it has tasked us this week to play games from the Atari 2600 platform. So, a little bit about the Atari. It is considered the granddaddy of all modern consoles. It was released by Atari in 1977 in the US and in 78 over in Europe. And it was the brainchild of Nolan Bushnell and the Atari Corporation, and has sort of became the ipso facto icon of video games. Its iconic joystick with the little orange button and the wood grain. You still see it everywhere, don't you, Bo?
You do. You do. It's a console that has stood the test of time. It doesn't matter who you are, if you are of a certain age, or even if you're younger than a certain age, like me, then you'll still you can still recognize an Atari 2600.
Absolutely. Just a little tidbit on this thing. I was nosing around. This came out in '77 at an introductory price of $199 US. Today's money, $803.
Holy cow.
So
you were loaded if you could afford an Atari 2600 at launch.
the funny thing is, eventually everyone owned one in all the U.S. Even we owned one. So it's crazy. They sold, it's hard to get total numbers, but they sold around 30 million as of 2004. Of course, this console stopped being produced. Gosh, I guess they went through variations, the Atari 2600, the Atari Junior, and then if you count stuff like the Atari 7800, which played these games, who knows how many millions of these things are circulating right now, but millions and millions, and they're still going strong, most of them. Yeah. They're pretty reliable.
And I'll tell you this, you may not know this about me.
All right.
But the Atari 2600 was the very first video game console thing that I ever played.
Really?
My neighbors down the street, my best friend growing up, her name was Amber. Her parents had a 2600, and I still remember playing Pac-Man and Defender. They were the very first two video games I ever played.
That is, it's ironic because Pac-Man is the all-time biggest seller on the 2600, 7 million units.
That's unbelievable.
7 million horrible units. Because that game was roundly hated by most Atari followers. So, with that in mind, and the fact that this thing had well over 400 cartridges, our job was to pick a couple out and talk about them. Bo, what do you got this week?
I chose Dragster.
As timely as today's headlines.
That's right.
Go ahead. Let's hear about it.
Well, no, because you're going to go first with Cosmic Arc.
You want me to go first?
As we've spoken about all week.
Okay, fair enough. So, Cosmic Arc is a game that was produced by an outfit called Imagic. They had an interesting mythology in the way they did games. If you know anything about the history of Atari, in the early days, Atari treated its developers rather shabbily. They didn't give them credits on their game covers. They did not give them credits in the game. They looked at these guys as just basically hourly workers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even think that they paid any kind of royalty or anything like that.
You got zilch. And so a bunch of these developers, or really they were just independent programmers because you basically developed your own game. They said, well, enough of this, and so a bunch of them left to form Activision, right? Which ironically, that's what the game you picked is, an Activision game. So another group that left went on to create Imagic, right? So these were two different companies, and you got to remember at the time, this was a novel concept of an independent third party producing games for someone else's system, which is effectively what it was. And of course, Atari took everyone to court, but eventually you know, it was allowed. And so people could produce games written for the Atari 2600. So Cosmic Arc, again, came out in 1982. It was a game for 1 to 2 players. And it came out after a previous game that Magic had made called Atlantis. And there's a tie-in between Atlantis and Cosmic Arc, which I'll get to. So the premise of this game is kind of interesting. You are an alien race, and you are looking for creatures to effectively keep your line going, your species going. You need to. It's sort of like a Cosmic Arc. You're like Noah. You're going around trying to pick up creatures to put on your ark and restock your supply. So this game's really in 2 parts. In the first part of the game, you are basically a large UFO. You descend from the top of the screen, and you are in the middle, and you have asteroids coming at you, up, down, left, right. And your job is to shoot these asteroids before they hit your ship and damage it. The controls in this are kind of neat. You have just the joystick, no button, and if you want to shoot upwards at the asteroid coming from above, you hit up. If you want to shoot downwards, you hit down, left for left, right for right. Pretty simple. So whichever way you point the joystick, you'll shoot a shot that way. So that in itself, it's funny, I've thought about this quite a bit. If in the old days, that would almost constitute an Atari 600 game, just that one part. But in Magic, they took it a step further in a lot of their games, and this is no exception. So this game actually is one of the few Atari 600 games that had a second stage or a second screen in it. In the second screen, your giant UFO from the asteroid field descends down and basically orbits a planet. And out of the bottom of the ship, a little tiny UFO comes out. And the UFO comes down to near the ground level, and there are 2 creatures, and these creatures will vary depending on what planet you're on. Your job is to go down with your little tractor beam, kind of hover over them, and then sort of beam them up, basically, effectively. Beaming up, and this isn't like Star Trek. It's more like a tractor beam. It takes a while to suck those little suckers. It's almost like an intergalactic claw machine is what it reminds me of. So on the first level, this is not too bad. You go down, these little critters run around. You try to kind of get them in a corner, you beam them up, and then you fly back into your ship. Now, there is a time element to this. If you take too long, you'll hear an alarm going off, and when that happens, that means you need to get your hiney back up into the mothership because an asteroid's getting ready to fly out from one side of the screen or another. If you get back to your ship in time, you can use the up, down, left to shoot the asteroid that's coming in, not down, but up and left and right. If you don't make it, the asteroid just comes in and blows you up. If you're not in the ship and you can't even use your guns, you're boned. It just blows you up. So that's something you always have to be in the back of your head when you're playing this, because there's a time element that you have to worry about. It's not too bad in the early stages. Now, as this game progresses, and it's one of these games that just never ends, it just goes on forever. The asteroid section gets a lot harder. The asteroids will start coming in at a faster clip, and eventually you'll get these kind of wiggly asteroids that come in, and sometimes they'll wiggle to the point where your shot misses them, and so you have to be very quick and careful to get those because they're ultra dangerous. So that screen will get harder, and then as you progress to that second screen, they add an element of danger, which are these 2 like zap towers that are on either side of the screen, and between them a wave of electricity will shoot out occasionally, and they oscillate up and down, and if you get caught in that, it kills you, blows up your ship. You have to restart that level over and try to get those little guys off the planet. Another problem is if you only get one of the 2 guys, that's fine. You can still leave the planet, but guess what? After the next asteroid belt, you're coming back down to do that planet again. So it can get rather irritating. This game doesn't have lives. It's got basically like a life bar at the bottom there. That's really what it is a fuel meter. And if you get hit by asteroids, you lose a certain amount of fuel. And if you every time you shoot, you use a little bit of fuel. Every time you shoot an asteroid, you get some fuel back. So the fuel element, basically the points are the fuel element in this. And when you eventually run out of fuel, your ship dies. If you're just traveling along and get hit by enough asteroids, it'll kill you real quick. You can get killed pretty much anywhere and lose fuel. So fuel is the main thing. It makes the game kind of odd because you can't really say, okay, I've got 2 lives left, I've got 1 life. you've got to, you've got to not be hit, and you've got to know how much fuel you've got. So aside from that, it's a pretty simple game, but it's not the easiest game to master. I've played it for years, and I don't think I've improved after a spell. One of the neat elements of this game, though, is that when you die at the very end of the game, your ship is destroyed, and a little tiny ship flies off from your ship. It's an element I always enjoyed, and because it's a callback to a previous Magic game called Atlantis. Now, in Atlantis, you're defending Atlantis from an aerial assault, right? And it's the city of Atlantis. I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically it's sort of missile commandy, I'd say, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. And at the end of that, when Atlantis is totally destroyed, you see a little tiny ship zoom off, and presumably that little tiny ship is the Cosmic Ark. So this is sort of a sequel to Cosmic Ark, and presumably sometime to Atlantis, and sometime in the future, presumably, they were going to do a sequel to this, which unfortunately never got made. So somewhere that little ship's still flying around, waiting for the waiting for the deal to go down. There are two versions of this game. There's one of the versions allows you to turn the star field on and off. The star field in this thing is sort of an interesting happenstance, basically. So the developer of this, the guy that actually did the program in this game, was a guy named Rob Fulop. All right. So I found an interesting interview with this guy. He was also behind Demon Attack. He did a bunch of stuff. He did Missile Command on Atari. So he had a pedigree that was pretty good. He said that the starfield in this thing was an accident that he discovered when he was making Missile Command. It was just he zigged when he should have zagged on the programming, and he made this starfield. And apparently the starfield was sort of this was sort of a holy grail in the Atari from a programmer's perspective. It was difficult to perform. And he said, there's a great story that Rob talks about where he was at an electronics show with the guys from Activision, and they had Demon Attack out and were showing it. And they were real proud of Demon Attack, and it's another great game. And they kept waiting for the guys from Activision to stroll by, and they never did. David Crane and the gang. So finally they strolled over there. Well, lo and behold, they're standing there all proud. They're displaying Pitfall. All right. And Rob Fulop was like, son of a gun, and basically they were showered in glory because Pitfall an all-time classic. Right. So the next year they had this out, and the whole purpose of it is, according to Rob, was for vengeance. He knew that it would kill Crane to see this starfield that he could not figure out how to do. And sure enough, according to him anyway, the next year, the guys from Activision strolled by innocently 2 or 3 times before finally David Crane walked up and congratulated him on the starfield. So he did have a bit of vengeance right there. So I thought that was a kind of a neat tale. But
what an exciting time to be! I'd love to be a fly on the wall during one of those early conferences, where those games were being demoed for the first time.
Yes, can you imagine? It'd be incredible. So in a nutshell, that's the long and short of it. It's a fun game. The iMagic games always had awesome, box art. The boxes were often chrome, really fancy with pictures. And the pictures on these, and I saw a little behind the scenes on a couple of these, they would actually take physical pictures of models.
Yeah, the photograph models.
And so these models are, presumably, some of them are still around even. And I think this is one, I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones I saw featured. This model of I guess a starship beaming something up, but I always thought they just looked classy. And Magic stuff, a lot like Activision, it had a certain finesse and prowess of the programmers that made it stand out. So I thought it was a pretty good game. Have you given this one much play this week? What did you think of it?
I thought this was a good game. It's certainly more in-depth than many Atari 2600 games, which, like you said, either one of these little events could be a full game in itself. You have the up in space, shooting the asteroids, and then you have down on the planet beaming things up. It kind of reminded me of the Death Star battle Atari. I don't know if that came. I'm sure it came to the 2600. I always played it on the Atari 8-bit, but it's that sort of multi-stage thing.
Yes. I remember. It's funny you should mention, because I remember thinking, it's like, I know of, and I don't know which came first, to be honest with you. But this concept of using the joystick to shoot up, down, left, right, it was in another game, and it's been on the tip of my brain. I could not remember what it was.
Robotron.
No. I mean, it's this literally. I mean, this is the exact game. I don't mean
okay.
no moving, just using the joystick up, down, left, right. It was an Atari 2600 game. I don't know if this was first or it was first.
But the main, I like the graphics. I thought the graphics were great. Actually, I love the star field. It looks super, super cool.
Very colorful, too,
I love the way that they differentiate between the planets just by shifting the color scheme. It's a little thing, but I mean, they could have just as easily not done it. I don't like the fact that you can't see the score all the time. To me, that just seemed weird.
That is strong. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a limitation.
I have a feeling that it is because you're using a different graphics mode to display the score, I think.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that I thought was cool about this game is it actually sort of had like a little title screen when you power it on for the first time. It says, copyright 1982, iMagic. It wasn't just a still thing, like you got with a lot of early 2600
It's
games.
funny things you take for granted. Now it's just like you expect something like that, but you're right. Not something you saw every day on a console. Something else I read a blurb about, and it's just showed up in an interview or something. I never read anything else about it, but apparently they had planned, I don't know if they ever successfully did this, but Magic had planned a contest for people to name the little creatures.
Oh.
Which I thought would have been kind of cool. I don't know if they ever successfully did it or not, but that'd be kind of neat to let people name them. I mean, really, they're different. They're just little squiggles, or sometimes they have 4 legs and they're running around. But for the Atari, to make little creatures that look like little creatures,
it was
something.
A huge achievement. One of my biggest complaint about this game is the way that the difficulty works. I got tired, physically worn out from just playing the game before the game got too hard for me to play. I had to,
really?
I don't know what your top score was, but I got to about 7,000, which amounted to about 10 minutes of playing for me.
You did better than me. My score was 48-30.
And I didn't really I felt like I could keep going, but my hand just hurt so much that I was like, well, I'm going to just play this on a higher difficulty level. I wish that the difficulty level would ramp up a little bit more and make you not have to choose between the difficulty settings on the title screen.
I will say, I've never played 2 players of this, but I looked into it, and it's the way they handle it is kind of wacky. One person plays this version level, and one person plays the other level, and you can also turn off the other level with another difficulty switch, or just one of the other games, it takes out the alien abduction level entirely, and just goes with the shooting area. You're right. One thing about this game, I will say this: I didn't get super tired, but there's a when you're on that meteor level, and that really is sort of the meat of the game, I guess. I mean, this part's cool too, but that's the real challenging part. It's got the way it makes noise when you shoot something, and it's a rhythm, and it intensifies in pitch as you go. And so you can sort of tell when you're coming close to being through the meteor storm, but it also intensifies your trepidation, it ramps up the anguish, because it's like, oh my God, I got to get through it. And it's nothing worse than letting that last asteroid careen into your ship and blow it up, and it's the last one, you're sure of it. Now, who knows for sure? But it made me stressful and nervous, and so I would say I do. I'm just gripping that thing really hard and trying to get through it. So I could see where it would definitely tire you out. Of course, you're better than me, so I never had enough chance to get that tired on this game.
And again, I was playing this on an emulator. I was using a PS4 stick, so I wasn't even using a stick. I was hitting the directions on the D-pad. And I don't know if that, if I would have been less fatigued, if I would have been using the trusty gym stick, or or your Wicco stick or whatever.
You'd been putting more bite marks in it, that's for sure.
That's true. But on the whole, this is definitely one of my favorite 2600 games, and I had never played it before picking it this week. So
really?
I was very impressed.
Very cool. Well, I like it an awful lot. Now, as with a lot of Atari 2600 titles, and probably both these this week, I had to look on eBay to see what this is going for. I mean, I think I've got 2 or 3 copies of this loose at the house. I remember using one to make a fridge magnet out of. And so, I mean, these things are plentiful. This was a good seller, and they're everywhere. And a lot of Atari games are dirt cheap. This is one you'll find at a swap meet or in a milk crate, one of those deals, and you can get it for $1 or 50 cents.
Right.
On eBay, I saw them going for a couple bucks, and I saw box ones going for like $5 plus shipping. So, I mean, they're not at all rare. No. Not at all. So if you want to get in on on the Cosmic Arc, man. It's a cheap fee to get
Or
on
just,
board.
2600 collecting in general. This is the time to get in.
It is because, I will say, I've noticed that as I go to some of these shows, the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision are sort of the forgotten consoles in a lot of ways. It's funny, the ColecoVision actually picked up a lot of steam in terms of those old sort of second generation consoles. But for whatever reason, the Atari, maybe it's because it's more rudimentary in a lot of ways, or there's so many, I mean, there's a lot of duds for it, let's face facts. But I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there too. So if you're a real cheap collector like me, I've got a crate of Atari games. So, so I understand all about getting the cheap ones.
Yeah.
But this would not be the worst game to pick up. It's a good title. I would say it's amongst the best iMagic titles, and one of the better titles on the 2600. So there you go, Cosmic Arc.
All right.
You want to take over the helm?
Sure. So my game for this week is Dragster. Now, before we go any further, I did not, when we recorded the last episode, it was actually a couple weeks ago, the news about the score and Todd Rogers, none of that stuff had broken. All of this has happened since we chose this game.
It's unbelievable.
Which
really.
I can only infer that they, OmniGamer and that whole crowd, they wanted to wait until ARG Presents talked about Dragster.
That's what it was, man.
To really blow the doors off the high score controversy.
I think you got it, man.
So we're going to get into all that stuff towards the end, but first I thought we should talk a little bit about what this game is.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Dragster was released in 1980 for the 2600 by Activision. Activision, as Aaron talked about, is a company of developers that left Atari due to Atari just basically treating them like maintenance men. They produced a widget. They were totally interchangeable. They weren't artists. The folks at Activision got tired of being treated that way and formed their own company. This was the first title published by Activision.
Really?
This was the very first title that they brought out. It was developed by David Crane, who we've also heard about. He did Pitfall, of course, Little Computer People, and did you know that he was the developer of Night Trap?
David Crane?
Yeah.
No.
I had no idea, but there you go. That infamous Sega CD release, Night Trap, they garnered all that controversy in the early 90s.
It's funny you should mention that. I'll tell you why. I didn't mention this when I was doing the review on this, but the fellow that programmed the Cosmic Arc, Rob, I believe he also worked on Night Trap.
Maybe they were a team.
He did. Sega Genesis CD. And he was so embarrassed by this, by working on it after all the controversy. He said that he was, the next game he did would be the cutest, fluffiest game ever made.
Now, you might think that Dragster is an original concept in video games, but you'd be wrong.
Really?
This is actually a clone. This is a clone of an arcade machine called Drag Race that was released in 1977 by Key Games.
Key Games, which that was Atari's
right, that was
sub-company.
a subsidiary of Atari. Now, do you know why that subsidiary existed?
I believe it was to compete with Atari.
It was to fulfill exclusivity agreements with these arcades and say, if you put Atari games in our arcade, well, you can't put them anywhere else. So they said, okay, we'll just make this other company and produce the same games. But there was never an Atari version of Drag Race. It was only in Key Games. It was called Key Games because it was founded by Joe Keenan, who was a friend of Nolan Bushnell, and they had one game called Tank that was so popular they were actually producing Atari and Key Games versions of Tank. I thought that we just pause right here and talk about, in our minds, sometimes I think we think about Pong and then we skip to Space Invaders. Pong was around 72, Space Invaders 77, something like that, 76. But there were a ton of games that were released between these 2 years in arcades, and they're largely forgotten. Mostly, I think, because they're black and white games, and they're just not as much fun to look at. But there were, Key Games and Atari released a lot of racing titles, sports titles, that X's and O's football is part of that, a basketball game, and of course Tank.
I've got one of those.
Yeah. And so, I just thought it was neat that Drag Race is part of that forgotten legacy of arcade machines.
It reminds me that, in that era, too, you had some of your video slash mechanical hybrid games in there, you know, and you've got some of those sub-hunting games that you never see anymore.
A lot of weird stuff, and those are all high-dollar machines.
Yeah, and a lot of those racing games, they have all the, you know, like 2 or 4 wheels on them. You know, they got cloned later.
Yeah. So this was not ported to any other machine. This was a Atari 2600 exclusive, and the object of the game is to basically shift gears and accelerate. So as soon as there's a timer that runs down, and you have a side view of your car as well as a second car. If you play a 2-player game, then the second car is controlled by the second player. If you play a 1-player game, that car is still there.
Yes, and he's horrible.
Yeah, and he will not accelerate. The way the game works is you shift from neutral into first gear all the way up the gears through 4th gear, and you try and see how fast you can get to the finish line. It's a very simple game, but as I'm sure you figured out, it's very, very addictive. There is an alternative game to this. One of the other game that's featured in this cartridge adds an extra layer of difficulty where you actually have to steer the dragster between the sideline and sort of a barrier or a bleacher. And so I never did that.
I tried it and I was not good.
To me, I was so focused in on getting my speed, getting my time up on the main dragster game. I was having enough fun as it was. But anyway, there's kind of the animation in this game is very limited. Your dragster itself, the wheels have, I think, 2 frames of animation, and then there's also a frame of animation when you blow your engine. It looks like your entire vehicle explodes, which I'm not sure if that's how it works in real life. I'm not a big dragster guy, but
the whole cockpit just sort of falls
seems
down.
like there should be a high mortality rate among dragster drivers.
No kidding.
But yeah, and basically when the game, when you reach the finish line, the game freezes, and that is the end of the game. So you could ask yourself, well, is this game a good game? That's a tough thing to answer. To me, it's a great game. I started playing this when about 10 years ago. I bought a game for the PS2 called Activision Classics. And they've released a ton of these. All kinds of companies have released. This is the best one I've ever played, and I'll tell you why. 1, it was all Activision games, so it was all good. There was no crap. 2, it had some unreleased titles in there, which were pretty awesome. There was one called Beam Rider. It was super cool. I can't remember if that was unreleased or not, but there were some unreleased titles in there. 3, they licensed a bunch of 80s music to play in the background. And so you could listen, you could listen to Kaja Juju and all that stuff, and you could control the volume of the game and the volume of the music. And of course, this is, back before you had streaming services and everything like that. So I didn't have all that music. So it was cool that they put that stuff in. And then 4, of course, when you could earn the patches. And the patches were a thing of beauty. And we'll talk, I guess we could talk about how the patches work. So Activision, this goes into a little bit about what we'll talk about with Todd Rogers a little later, but they would put in their cartridges, in the instruction manuals sometimes, they would put what score you needed or what time you needed to earn a patch. And if you took a picture of that score and sent it in, they would send you a cloth patch. And these things look super awesome. I would love to have a whole set of them. It would have been a cool thing to look up how much those are going for on eBay right now, but I did not do that. So.
I didn't either. I'm sure they go for pretty penny these days.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Aside from the other game where you steer the dragster, this is it. Now, would I have been happy if I'd have paid full price for this? I don't know. The games, this costs as much as Pitfall or River Raid. Does this deliver as much long-term fun? Well, on the face of it, no, because it's so simple. But I think the 2-player option, I would probably add a lot of life to this, because you go up against, other people. And this is a game that's so easy to figure out that even people that aren't really into video games, but maybe are into cars, they could enjoy it too. It is neat to watch your engine or your dragster as it accelerates. If you hit it just right, it'll go up on 2 wheels. So I like that a lot. I do own this cartridge. I've got a box copy of Dragster for the 2600. The price tag on the back has been scratched off, so I don't know how much this originally went for. But I can tell you that I bought all of the Activision games. Almost all of them can be had boxed for about $10 on eBay. So these are not high dollar games, and of course this is a classic with the rainbow on the front, and it's just a classic box. So I really like the box and the art design in this game a lot. Aaron, what did you think about Dragster?
When you picked this, I had heard of it, and I had even had it in the Atari. But I had zero idea what in God's name you were supposed to do. So I tried it, and I could do nothing. I literally just sat there like an idiot. I was like, what do I do? I have no idea. I don't know how to drive a stick, for that matter, in real life. So
Me neither.
I got online. God bless God bless YouTube, I should say, eBlay. God bless YouTube, because you could get instructed on any sort of. I could probably perform open heart surgery if I had that computer sitting there. And a dude said, listen, here's the simple and basic ways that this works. And I watched the video, and I grabbed the joystick, and get the. And after performing with it for about 10 minutes, I had a rudimentary knowledge of what the hell was happening. And then I got it. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like maths. I mean, it just clicked.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there, and you can attest this because I started sending pictures out. I played this thing for every waking moment that I could for 3 or 4 days, and then on and off after that for another week. I played the crap out of it. It is the most basic game I think I've ever played and derived so much pleasure from. It is ugly. It's green. It's frustrating, and you can only get mad at yourself.
Right.
But it is a lot of fun. It's fun in the same way that, like, I'm trying to think what you could equate to. I mean, it's just a quick shot glass of fun, but you want more shots.
Yeah.
So I equate it to a drinking problem, I guess. The fact that you can, when you get remedially good at it, you feel great. You know, like, I mean, every time I would go down, and this is one of those games where you drop, say, like, if you drop a 1/10 of a second, you're like, holy smokes!
It's a huge deal.
And I remember when I first started getting under 7, I thought, man, I am a stud at this game. You know, I've really gotten it down. And then, ironically, and I'll let you get into it, but that's when I thought, let me look. I wonder what the world record is on this, because I remember hearing something about it, and it was the exact same moment that it went down.
Well, it's funny because let me refer to the instruction book here. In the instruction book, it even has these tips on how to be a world-class driver. And there's a picture of David Crane
That
right
book
there.
right there shows you the difference between Atari and Activision. They give the guy a picture, his autographs on it, and a blurb.
Right. And so, and he says that in a one-on-one game, if you want to beat the other player, you'll have to become an expert drag racer. You'll want to come in under 6.5 seconds. And then he says, if you can do better than 6 seconds, take a picture of the screen and send it to us. We'll enroll you in our world-class dragster club. So I think that that's what you'd have to do to get the patch.
That's what you had to do. And unfortunately, I'll reveal it now, I would not get the patch. I was close. I don't know what your time was, but I'm going to ask you now before you get into the Todd Rogers stuff. My time was 6.44 seconds.
All right.
That's as fast as I could go. And I tried a lot, so that's as good as I could do.
You beat me, man.
6.44.
You beat me. 6.47.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And I've got
Well
pictures
deserved.
to prove it.
Are you sure? Was it
I
a
do.
tool-assisted speed run?
No. The only tool was me.
You did assist in it.
Now, I've got to hear about this. So tell us about what you found out with the whole controversy.
Okay, so I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible.
Sure, but we've got to touch this.
There is literally a hundreds and hundreds page thread at the Twin Galaxy forums that details all of everything that's gone on. But basically what happened was in 2000, well actually back at some point in the past, Todd Rogers was this guy. He submitted a score to Activision. It's a little bit unclear about whether the score in question was witnessed in person or if it was a photograph and it had been lost. But at any rate, Activision had accepted his time. And the time was 5.51 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in 2001, the score was put into the Twin Galaxy score database. So it's been there for a while.
It was I think it was the longest reigning score that they had.
Oh, okay.
I'm
okay.
pretty sure.
The score was eventually recognized by Guinness Book of World Records. You know, made it into the book and all that stuff. However, on August 11th, 2017, Twin Galaxies member D.B. Cooper, what a name, officially disputed the validity of Todd Rogers' dragster score. He said that it was impossible, and he demonstrated that it was impossible by basically playing a perfect game using code, you know, using an emulator and what he knew of the code. This was also done in collaboration with this guy named OmniGamer. So they said that there's no way that it's possible to get a score of less than 5.57 seconds. And this has been tested several times by several different people. What happened as a result of this is that Guinness has removed Todd Rogers from its archive, and the Twin Galaxies has removed not only this score, but many scores from their database by Todd Rogers, because they've seen a pattern where Todd has he's submitted scores for games that just physically aren't possible. For example, there's a game called Wabbit for the 2600.
Which I've never heard of until I read about this. Yeah.
There's a kill screen that activates when the score reaches 1300. But he actually submitted a score of 1698. So people are wondering how that happened. He's also got a score of 99,999,990 on the legendary axe for TurboGrafx 16, but the score only increases in multiples of 50. So I guess it's impossible to get that score. So because of this, you know, Todd has kind of become shunned by the high score community in general. However, he does have his defenders, including among his defenders is one Mr. David Crane. David Crane said, I had personal interaction with Todd Rogers around the time of his dragster record. Todd was without question one of the greatest video game players in history. We at Activision were so impressed with his skill that on several occasions we flew him out and paid his expenses to demonstrate games at trade shows. After hours, we would entertain industry reps, etc. Todd was there. He was putting up awesome scores. So this guy is not a man without skill. Whether he has forged these scores or not is sort of immaterial to the fact that he's very talented at playing video games. However, you know, it's sort of, to me, in this, the burden of proof lays on Activision, because Activision is the one that accepted this score. So I don't know if perhaps, you know, there was something that with a picture where it's something that got smudged or something like that, but I don't lay all the blame for this particular score, for the dragster score, at the feet of Todd Rogers, because Activision saw something that proved to them in the days before Photoshop and emulators and things like that convinced him that this was a legitimate score.
It's very tricky. There are layers. This is like an onion. We could talk about it for an hour. There are people that think he has forged scores for other attempts at dragster. The theoretical, from what I read, the theoretical highest score that you could possibly get was 5.54, and no human has gotten anything, or no computer, no one has ever gotten anything below 5.57, and a bunch of people have gotten that. So probably that's as low as it will go. Do I think he probably faked it? Yeah. Do I think he's a great player? I mean, he was Mr. Activision. That was his moniker. So he's much like Billy Mitchell, who just had a very similar thing happen to him with his Donkey Kong scores. These are tremendous players that have played live for years. Did they take some shortcuts? Almost certainly. And this is a new era. It's not like the old days where you just send something to a magazine, you can get away with it. I mean, you've got people out there who will haunt you night and day, and they will look up everything. I look at the Coleco Chameleon controversy. Those guys were looking at still photos, and they were determining the circuit board that was inside the clear plastic casing, and they had determined the chips that were on it and stuff. The people do not screw around.
Right, and that kind of brings me to the next point of this and sort of the dark side of all this. You know, whether Todd has has done this honestly or by deceit. I read his response on Facebook. He posted a very lengthy response, and he says, "If you wish to call me a cheat, a fraud, etc., you have every right until you see evidence that says otherwise. But when remarks become personal and my friends and family are dragged into the mire, it is no longer about gaming." And that is really the dark side of almost everything that has to do with the gaming subculture, is that you have all these, they're really kids. Even if they're grown up, they're acting like kids. And they send hateful messages to people that have nothing to do with it, that are related, you know, friends or whatever, talking trash about this guy. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about a high score for a game that came out 40 years ago.
Well, some people take this stuff very seriously. You should never take something so seriously that you threaten someone's family.
Right.
But you know, this is where we're at now.
Yeah.
The anonymity of the internet gives. I mean, there's always been trolls. As far back when I was on the BBSs, and they've gotten worse over the years. That's just the way it is. You know, I guess the moral of the story is, stay fair, play fair, and you probably won't have to go through something like this.
Hopefully. Speaking of which, though, did you happen to hear about the most recent Billy Mitchell controversy?
I know. I heard about his Donkey Kong meme issues.
Right,
Talking about,
right.
Yeah.
And so several of his scores have been disputed because, and this is just so crazy because he claims that he's taking the live feed off an arcade board. And what these people have done is they've actually slowed the footage down to such a degree that they can see the order that things are drawn on screen.
Yep.
And when you play through MAME, things are drawn differently on the screen than they are on a off an arcade board. And they're saying that this is not what he says it was.
Yeah, and again, much like Rogers, Billy is a top shelf player who has performed time and time again in public over and over, years and years. Now, did he take a shortcut? He probably did. I mean, the evidence is damning. So again, much like we said with Todd Rogers, play clean and fair because we're in a new era. Now, of course, back when he submitted this stuff, you didn't worry about someone going through it with a fine-tooth comb, but those days are over.
Yeah.
People will pick apart anything.
And, you know, it's funny, since the King of Kong has come out, you know, and people still think about Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell being at the top. Do you know where those guys are now in the Donkey Kong World Records?
I believe Mitchell's score was it number 10 now?
He's
or
12.
Like 12?
Yeah.
And I know Wiebe's not in the top 8 anymore.
So they have been long surpassed as the kings of that particular machine.
I mean, that's a great flick, by the way.
It is.
I mean, it's a work of sort of semi-fiction, but as a film, it was, I mean...
very entertaining.
Billy Mitchell was the top heel.
Yeah.
I mean, just... He came out with his hair and the tie, and he strutted out with his busty wife. It's like, look at this guy, you know. And here's this poor pathetic teacher.
But that's
Great
the thing.
movie.
It's like we were talking about on our other show on Amigos. You know, video games. You know, it's great when we have characters like that in the scene.
Yeah, and so I will say it hurt me, much like when a sports star falls that I like. It's tough to watch someone that you. I'm not saying I respect or admire him, but I enjoyed his antics. And really, Billy's raised a lot of money for charity.
Yeah, by all accounts, you know, when you talk to him on a personal level, he's a nice man.
In fact, I used to listen to a show that had Wiebe and Billy on there. It was the first time they'd ever gotten on any shows, well before King of Kong. He was super nice. They were getting along great. I mean, that drama was basically conjured up. It's sad. It's sad that he's, you know, smudged up his reputation now. But I mean, it's smudged. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's just a little bit of the dragster controversy. Again, you know, we couldn't not talk about it. If you are interested in finding out more, definitely head on over to Twin Galaxies. This whole event has sort of changed the way that I think a lot more high scores are going to be disputed from now on, especially those from long ago.
And I'll give him credit for trying to clean it up.
Yeah.
I will say that. And if you take anything from this, just go and play some dragster.
Yeah.
It really is. It's as much fun as 6.9 seconds can allow. It's a great fun game for what it is.
All right, Aaron. Well, I thought before we go to the wheel, since this is our second episode, we've kind of dipped our toe in the waters here. We should explain a little bit more about what ARG Presents really is about. This is a show that is a lighthearted take on two games from a different system every week. If you're tuning in, you know, expecting to hear two goofs talk about two games that they like to play, you're in the right spot. If you're in this for an in-depth, no holds barred, no stone left unturned, strategy heavy podcast from guys that grew up playing these games and play them constantly day after day, this is probably not the show for you. You know, Aaron and I are, we love playing video games. We love talking about video games. We love our community, the Amigos retro gaming community. And we want to get the word out about games that we enjoy. But we're not really looking to take any kind of a deep dive, because that's not really the kind of podcast that we like to listen to. We want to make the kind of show that we'd want to listen to.
And often on this show, we'll be trying games, much like on Amigos, that we've never played or haven't played for decades. I mean, we don't even... This is one show where we can literally say, we don't know what we're doing. We don't have no idea what we're playing next week, because we can't. And so that's sort of the fun for us. And we're going to use this as a personal platform to just jump in the genres and systems that we haven't played with that much, and to give it a shot. You know, try some different stuff. And it's exciting for me to try games I haven't, like Drags is a perfect example of a game I probably would not have picked up if it wasn't for, you know, having it come up on the wheel. So if you like that sort of thing, here we are. And, you know, if you want something really deep, I don't know.
There's other shows out there for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that said, Aaron, it is time to bring out the Retro Roulette.
Bring it out, Boat.
All right. So
there's a certain mythology you have to go through to, before the wheel appears.
So we bring out the wheel. Now, last week, of course, we had, as I attempt to do this, looking at the camera, the Atari 2600 was chosen, so we are going to remove that from the wheel, and we will add in a new category. This week's special new category is Arcade Classics. So basically, the premise of this is he positions that. You can tell each one of these little quadrants has a different classic console or classic computer. We spin the wheel, and once the wheel makes the selection, we pick a couple games from that system to talk about on the next show. That's simple as that. Here we go.
Round and round she goes. And hopefully we'll get a good result this week. What do we got, Boat? And it's
the Commodore 64.
Oh, wow. Hey, Commodore. I don't know much about them.
Well, we're gonna have to do some research, I guess. But if you are interested in hearing about another Commodore system, Aaron and I have a show called Amigos that runs weekly. Also, we actually tape it on Fridays right after ARG presents. If you want to watch it live, hang out in the chat, you know, you're always welcome to do that. Amigos releases on Fridays. ARG Presents comes out on Wednesdays. It's all Amiga all the time, and this is whatever the wheel says it is.
So why don't you grab the envelopes here? Let's see what we're playing next week.
All right. So
in these envelopes, we have each picked 3 games, and we're going to pick one each, and that's what we're going to be doing next week.
At first, I thought you alphabetized them, but you did not.
Clearly, you've confused me with a teacher. All right, so we've got the thing here. Let me see here. That looks like that's yours, and that is mine. So, Bo, what will be your selection for next week's C64 Spectacular?
Okay, we're going to play a game called Skate or Die.
Skate or Die. Well, ironically, that was also on my list, but not the one I'm picking. We're going to play Forbidden Forest. I've heard a lot about it. I've never played it. So, Forbidden Forest and Skate or Die next week. Should be a good time.
Sounds great, Aaron. All right, guys. We're going to wrap up, and Aaron's going to do it.
For myself and Boat, have a safe, happy week. And until then,
adios. All right. That's it for that one.
When you said you're going to go first, I thought you meant I was going to start the show. I didn't think you meant you're going to go with the first
that was
game.
Like the whole, like the monkeys opening up, or the stones opening up for the monkeys.
You have to spell it out for the humanoids.
Okay,
man.
okay.
You had to spell it out.
I should probably be able to edit that out anyway.
Yeah, that would be great. Hey, by the way, I want to look through it. Go ahead. All right, look. Good. Hey, C64. We can do that.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
I was hoping that when it would come up here soon, because I've been playing some C64. All right. What'd you think about that one?
I thought that went really well.
Man, you had a plethora of stuff. Are you sure about David Crane and Night Trap? You're 100% sure about that?
That's what Wikipedia said.
You're shitting me. What are the odds of both these guys would work on Night Trap?
Well, they both started out at Activision together.
I didn't even mention that. And then, but I remember reading this interview, and he's like, "Man, I was on Night Trap." It's like, I was like, "So what are the odds?" And then you said that, I thought, "Holy smokes!"
So there was actually another game on my number one on my list was this game called Seaside Special.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember if that was actually any good or not. And so,
Well, you're not supposed to know, are you?
yeah. And so, but I figured if I picked like a more famous one, you'd pick a more.
Well, wrong again. Okay, let me tell you. So we're going to flow right into the Amigos here, right? So this week I'm going to go into this email I got from the Supercars 3 guy. That's on the list. Okay, you good with that?
Yeah.
Just a quick little, because I mean he did send me the email.
We got feedback too.
All right,
Let me check in with the chat
let me
here.
get my news up. I think that flowed a little bit better. Man, you had a lot of stuff. How long did we go on that? That went a lot longer than I thought it would go.
We went about 45 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me, everybody. That show makes me nervous. That was the second time we've done it, and I was nervous that time too.
Well, I don't know why you're nervous for that and not for Amigos.
I'm nervous for everything. I'm wired for sound, man.
It's like we got Pishbot here, Pixels, Eric's here, Tragard, get ready. We're getting ready to dune it up for you.
Yeah, I pre-apologize, Tragard.
Laurent, hello, Laurent. Paul's here. Looks like there's lots of fans of the C64 here. So
cool. Anybody out there played Forbidden Forest? I heard it was awesome.
Yeah, they say Forbidden Forest is awesome. Forbidden Forest is amazing. It's a quote from Graham Vebke.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We need to clear the stage of all of our Atari accoutrements.
You mean, oh yeah, I don't have any Atari accoutrements, so I just figured this was a catch-all. You know, I heard an interview with the guy that makes Forbidden Forest. I'm trying to think of what his name is. Oh, it's killing me. I know one of y'all know his name.
I'm trying to think if we had. It's too bad that we don't have like something Amiga to set on the table. I'll get that. Yeah, that's all right.
Shoot, I would have brought an Amiga over here. I've got a couple now. Did I tell you how much I got for that peripheral I sold?
$179.
Tell you what, I needed that. God, I need to sell about 10 more. What am I saying? I need to sell 70 of them, and I'll be in business. They're going to kill me on this thing. I'm going to be into the tune of almost $7,000.
Man, HVAC stuff is.
It's a scam. You can't do it yourself. You can't buy it yourself. God, man, it's brutal. Hold on, give me 1 second here.
I need to tune.
Hey, by the way.
Hey, Jimmy G here. You might know me from such podcasts.
I want to. I'm not going to play this show, but do you remember? Did you look through our comments on the show?
Yeah.
This guy put a post out, and he said like, "I'd like to watch your show, but I'm busy. I'm working on my own show."
Right.
Did you look at that guy? I did, and so, what he does, he among other things, he does little songs. All right, and
Okay.
so.
I need to get my guitar. Speaking of that.
No, and I like this. You can't hear the music.
How many views is he rocking out doing that?
He's got 45 now. I went over there and added him. And he also he's a biker. I'm like a.
So he records videos of him singing a song that you can't hear the music to.
Oh, he's working on the show. That's what he said. He doesn't have time to watch our show.
Right.
He's working on his show.
But that is his show.
I mean, his show is him going around on a bike.
Okay.
And then him walking in the park. But I mean, it's not really. There's not a formal show there because he's.
I just think it's odd that we had somebody that commented on our video telling us that they don't have time to watch.
That's what I like. No, see, that's the whole reason I wanted to look into this guy because that was such a weird comment that I was like, man, who has so little time that they can't watch our show, but they would make the comment. They would have enough time to actually live a comment about the show. It was very strange to me. So when I found out that he sang, I was going to reach out to him to see if I could get some of his songs to play, but I didn't get a chance. I got busy today. He's quite a character, though, this guy.
Here's our game. Should be good to go. Okay, I'm actually going to see if my guitar is in tune. All right.
Okay, let me get my news stuff up here, and I'll be ready to rock. We got a lot of news, brother.
Okay.
I'll tell you something. It's a gimmick. Brother.
One thing I really like, I know you like about the new show too, is that I don't have to touch the keyboard. I can listen to you talk.
I know. I noticed that,
great.
man. Also, there's no news. Always
Yeah.
a good thing. But there is no news for that stuff, but there's plenty of news for our stuff. And did you notice I even had that? I went to all the trouble to make that. I don't think you could even see it
Yeah,
anywhere.
you couldn't see it.
I
Yeah,
tried.
It was cut off at the...
Yeah, I tried.
It was
That's
good,
not
though.
my
You're
point.
starting to develop your own Photoshop skills.
Oh, are you kidding me? Not in your league, but darn sure. I'm sounding like when we release this stuff. Okay, so we can talk about the Wing Commander video. We can talk about Dreamcatcher, new Amy Berry, upcoming hero.
What do you want to insert into the wheel? Oh, maybe we should put in the chat choice.
Yep,
Yep.
that was going to be my suggestion. Absolutely.
I'm so glad. I was so scared that Atari 7800 was going to pop up. It was right underneath.
Oh, I didn't know that was on the. Yeah, we put way too much. It's like now you can see my point here.
I
It's
sent
not your fault.
sent you a list of systems.
Listen,
You're like, looks great,
listen,
man.
Listen to me. We didn't think.
I'll kill you.
Calm down. It's nobody's fault. I'm just saying. It didn't, when Folds, which I was like, he's probably right. That's and I thought about it before too. I was like, wow, it's 2 Ataris in a row. And then it occurred to me, I was like, man, we could have the 2600, 7800, the Atari ST.
I didn't actually put the 5200 on there. Though,
I don't have a 5200 that works.
Well, and the 8-bit is all it's
Yeah.
all overlap.
Right, exactly. So, but there's plenty of systems from, so it all worked out. We could make that work. Yeah. Okay. I've got 1, 2, 3. You mean to take all of the news?
Yeah, I need you to do
Okay,
everything.
that's fine. I get that at the house, not going to come here and hear it.
It's all I can do to run the board.
Like, go back to the chat before we start. I want to read
Okay.
some. Okay. I was just wondering if anybody knew that guy's name.
Laurent, the segment before was actually a whole different show called ARG Presents. It's our new podcast.
The outro theme for that is the greatest song ever recorded by man. It is so dopey. And the lyrics are so stupid. Every time I just listen to that thing, I've been over and over. I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I'm glad because I wanted it to be like that.
It's so.
Do you know who Belle and Sebastian are?
I don't have any idea.
Okay, well, I wanted it to sound like one of their songs, which you'd hate, and so yeah, I'm glad. And it gets stuck in my head sometimes.
What are you going to lose for the theme this week? Neither one of these games have any music.
I was hoping that we'd have some. I don't know. I'll find something. I'll find something high energy that you'll appreciate.
High energy.
Treyguard, you absolutely can. I will put a link in the show notes.
What is Treyguard?
He's asking about if you can buy the T-shirts that we're wearing. You absolutely can.
But why would you buy these when you can get a mime and
puppet bar?
Puppet
That is
bar
also
shirt.
available. You get your mime and puppet bar shirt. You got your. For
You're
some
gonna see
reason, that ended up at the very bottom of the page.
You're
I
going
don't
to see
know how
this
that
popping
happened.
up all over Europe, all over Australia. Mime and puppet bar. By the way, the Supercars 3 guy commented on the shirt. He's like, "That's great."
That's awesome. I love the Supercars 3 guy. All right, so we got this. We got to get the G Plus.
Have we noticed we've done several French games.
Well, I think there were a lot of French developers.
They weren't crap.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Out of this world or whatever. Flashback. We play that at football games.
What was that?
That Jay Giles band.
The quick brown fox thing. It just popped.
Oh, I was installing fonts. Oh,
I just saw that whip. I'm like, whoa!
the quick. Yeah. Okay. You know what that's for, though, right?
It's for fonts.
Yeah, but do you know why they use
It's
that
a
sentence?
typing thing.
No.
Isn't it?
It's got all the letters in the alphabet. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
I remember it was a typing exercise. I'd see it all the time.
Did you actually have to take typing in school?
I did on a typewriter.
Yeah. See, by the
was
time I got to
god-awful.
school, people they realized that everybody could type.
People can't type now. I would crush most people at typing.
Really?
My mom's a secretary, man. I went to work. I've had my skills have diminished over the years, but I'm still a pretty good hand. I had a typing intro at a bank I was wanting to work at. They're like, listen, you have to be able to type, I can't remember how many words a minute.
Probably
like,
40.
She's like, ready, go. And I was like, and I was finished, like, literally, I sat there for like 5 minutes waiting for everybody else to finish. I just, like, murdered it. She's like, well, you're definitely qualified. I'm like, yeah, no kidding.
How come you didn't get the job?
Thievery. Too much thievery.
Well, once they discovered all of your embezzlement from your previous occupations.
Man, I should have been
The hundreds of thousands of Daveronis dollars.
Oh, man. Daveroni bucks. Yeah.
All right. So, are we ready?
Who have you been talking to, Bode? I'm ready. And we'll put this, we'll put the Supercars guy in with the feedback before we do the news. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
we've also got, I've got other mailbag too. I'll start with my mailbag. It's short. And then we'll
We're
go into this thing.
doomed.
Yep.
Dude.
I've got all kinds of Dune puns
Look how
that I'm
thick
going to
this
throw in
Dune thing is.
there. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I expect you to read every word.
No. I mean, I'm just looking. I'm like, my God. What in God's name did I print? Because I did this a couple days ago. I'm like, look at this. Like, holy crap. I'm going to greatly compress this.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Look at me. I look like a newscaster. I got
You
all this
do.
crap in it. Just in. We're screwed.
Okay. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Dune.
Dune.
Right. But before we get into Dune, Aaron, we got some feedback from the last episode.
Okay, let's hear it, man.
This comes in from a guy on Twitter called The Fuzzy Gamer.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Good name.
Yeah, he said, I wanted to thank you for your podcast, as you guys have helped me through a very hard time.
No.
My father passed away this Christmas, and listening to your podcast has helped me rekindle and reconnect with my childhood memories of using the Amiga with him. He says, I'm still trying to catch up to the latest episode. I've started at the beginning. I'm almost at episode 50. Just wait till episode 50. That's a barn burner.
Wow.
Show is super fun. You guys have great chemistry. So thank you, The Fuzzy Gamer.
Oh,
very
man,
nice
that's
of
great.
you.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
about your day.
Absolutely.
That's tough. But hey, keep on trucking. They get better after about 10. They get better.
I'm still waiting for it to get good.
I didn't say that much better.
What do you got, Aaron?
I meant to stick this in the last show, but I'm going to stick it in now. So, if you'll recall, a few episodes back, we did the Supercars series, which is still playing them, by the way. Great, simple to get into game. You'll recall that I mentioned Supercars 3, which is sort of a hodgepodge, updated version of Supercars that was made for DOS. It was sort of like a hack job. And so I reached out to the fellow that actually did the hack job, which his name was Jean-Francois Fabre. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he actually got back with me. And basically, I asked him just a few basic questions about the game. And basically, what he said, first, he thanked me for it right. And he said, nice workbench T-shirt, which I like that. He said the game is running properly. And he says it could be better, the physics, the enemy AI, but it's still okay. He says he'd like to add more circuits, but it's difficult not to redo what's already been done. And he's not a graphics guy, so he just copies blocks of existing circuits to make new ones. He said bad bugs were in the previous version, but they got them ironed out, that's the version that we're playing now. And in the old one, he said it would forget that you completed a lap, so that was a bad bug. He says next time he's going to use the same system, just update it. But there's possible that he may do more work on Supercars 3 at some point. He didn't guarantee it, but you never know. He also said he's a big Amiga guy, and he loves remakes. And I mentioned to him about the Killer Bee, reimagining on the Amiga, and he's going to look into that. And he's a big Odyssey 2 fan as well, so he's our kind of guy.
Absolutely.
So thanks for getting back to me, sir, Jean-Francois. We appreciate it. And like I said, I was a big fan of his turn on Supercars 3, and wouldn't mind seeing him update. Really, the one thing I'd like to see updated is the weird whipping collision detection issue. Aside from that, I think it's a pretty solid game. So,
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
And we got one more piece of feedback from Traegard 1982. Traegard here in the chat with us as we speak. He says, this is in reference to our Wing Commander episode. He says, I didn't realize for years of playing that I could press A for autopilot and skip a lot of the flying between nav points. I didn't know that either.
Yes.
And he says, I'm sure that I read the Amiga version was more difficult. I'm unsure, though, if that's as a result of the really low frame rate.
Well, yes, if you, just to mention it now, I did a video on Wing Commander on the standard stock Amiga 600. and with no added memory, no added anything. It's used the Amiga and the Gotek, and recorded about a half hour of footage, and it was mind-meltingly slow. You knew right away, as soon as the game loaded and you saw those first initial fighters that fly to the screen and the title comes up, you're like, I'm doomed.
Yeah.
And it was. And so the fact that this was released for sale, and it didn't say you can't run this, is a criminal. And it reminded me of my old PC days, because if you're an Amiga guy, in the old PC days, it's sort of like the Amiga is now. There was always a jerk next door that had better system than you, so you'd play a game over at his house, then you'd bring it home to your house, and it would be sludgy and crudgy.
What's something on the PC that comes to mind immediately that was like that?
Wing Commander. It was, it was one. I mean, the PC, they did a better job of locking you out if you didn't have the hardware to play it a lot of times. But I mean,
I'm sure any kind of a flight sim.
I'll tell you, Battle Chess is one that comes to mind. I mean, it didn't take much to run Battle Chess, but I had a system so slow that the little battles, the pieces what I had would just take like 10 minutes, just like, oh, this is horrible. Anything you can see the screen redraw, you're boned on that. So yeah, but it took me back. But yeah, Wing Commander was a lot of fun, and if you've got an Amiga that can handle it, you're in business. It was a good version.
So anyway, we're always looking for feedback. So if you have a message for us, you can either send it to us at amigospodcast.com or leave a message on the YouTube comments.
Right on.
Want to hear from you. Man. All right, Aaron, it's time to talk about what's new this week in the world of Amiga news.
Let me open up the Gambletron 5000 here. So not a ton of news this week, but some. So right out of the gate, let's talk Amy Berry.
Let's talk about it.
What do you know about Amy Berry? We've covered it before. The Raspberry Pi Amiga emulation solution. Have you gotten to try this yet at all?
I have not. Is this something that didn't you compile an Amy Berry thing on a Raspberry Pi at some point?
I did, and it's pretty darn good, and it's now gotten better. A few days ago, they released a new version that is supposedly offers huge speed improvements. Amy Berry irritated me because of the interface, but it's gotten better. It's everything about it is better. This is a great solution if you're cheap and you can't get an Amiga or afford an Amiga, or there's not one readily available. This is a great cheap alternative. It really is. And when I say cheap, I'm the cheapest dude in town, and Boat knows that. I'll pinch a penny. And so if you can spring for the, $30 it costs to get a Pi, and then get you an SD card of any size, stick in there, and you're in business. You're in business. HDMI Amiga, stereo, glory is nice. It runs real well. I've tried a ton of stuff on them. Compatibility's good. I mean, let's face facts. On an actual Amiga, the compatibility is only fair.
Yeah, that's true.
Between machines.
We know all about that.
Yeah. So, and God, try to get HDMI to one on a shoestring budget. We know about that too. Impossible. So, this is a good alternative, and if it's certainly worth a look.
Yeah. And
if you're into that sort of thing, you definitely want to pick it up. So, next on the docket, our good buddy from YouTube, Transor Z. What a name. Linked me up with a look at the new Heroes of Gorluth gameplay footage. It's very short gameplay footage, but it looks pretty interesting. They did a good job on it. I like the run on it.
Your character moves very smoothly. It reminds me of Symphony of the Night, sort of.
He reminds me of a guy that's had too much coffee.
Absolutely.
I mean, he literally, you ever get that feeling where you're idling like a car? I remember when I used to work at Lexmark, we'd take these mini thins. They're legal over-the-counter, like speed, basically. And I'd look across, I would survey all my workers, and they'd be like, in a car, like shaking. I mean, they'd be like, they were ready to go. And I was like, man, we're going to get a lot of work done tonight. It just won't be good, but we will get something done. So let's get back to, we've mentioned this a couple weeks ago. They have gone to work on the Bamiga Sector 1 Amiga collection. And they have, again, this is that huge collection we were talking about. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I guess they've uploaded more goodies, because I saw a lot of people talking about this. There's a picture that accompanies this of 18 kabillion, it looks almost like a postal shelf,
right?
Like a zillion discs in it, and then discs stacked up on top of that. anyone would be proud to own this collection boat, and it can be yours. All you have to do is get online and download till your heart's content. Of course, certain legalities may apply. Let's be honest. But they're there, and someone's just literally ripping these and uploading them, a zillion of them. So, kind of neat if that's your bag, and it's my bag sometimes. So let's talk about Zuriax. All right, Zuriax, pretty interesting name. It's a game rescued from the never released pile. It's an interesting tale behind this game too. That they found. I got this off Indie Retro News, our good and dear friends over there. It's sort of an R-type Gradius kind of gimmick. It just never got released. There was never a fully working version of it, but I guess someone went back and went through and fixed everything. It was a game that was put out by the Whiz Kids, which I've not heard of that outfit from back in the day, but it looks pretty good, we've played a few games like this, and it looks, this would stand up with about anything that we've seen.
Yeah, this actually looks better than a lot of things that
it
we played.
almost has a horizontal Alcon-y sort of thing.
I knew you were going to say that.
Hey, I'm just saying, it's got the little missiles, it's got the expandable ship.
I know.
Hey, listen, you don't mess with success. Alcon was the ultimate, and I love that game. So there you go. What do you got a problem with Alcon, buddy?
No,
I'll jump right up.
Never.
So, and lastly, or actually not last, I got two more. Let's talk about the Commodore story, the film.
Yes.
This is coming to Amazon, Netflix, and iTunes.
I cannot wait.
This month, Boat. This
Wow.
very much. It could be there right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching this bad boy. I've watched many of the little trailers. It looks like my cup of tea. We've got to get that deck of cards that have all the Commodore stuff on it. A lot of it is talking about how Commodore was high, it went down, but now it's back. And by that, I mean us and all the other Commodore fans that brought it back, violently dragging it into the future. And that's basically what really, the viability of the C64 and the Amiga, it's really going through when we started this show, and by the way, we are not taking any credit for this by any stretch of the
Don't listen,
imagination.
Aaron. We're taking all the credit. Before Amigos, nobody really cared about the Amiga.
We stumbled bass backwards into this a renaissance. We're the luckiest two idiots in a basement of all time. It's much like your dragster video. It's like, wow, the timing was great. But it really gets me excited. I've said this a million times, but it's great that you can use your computer and you feel like all of a sudden it's back. People are like, my friends are talking to me about it. They're like, oh man, my buddies that have Ataris and stuff, we chat about it. It's like, this stuff's coming out. Let's, have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? Yeah, it's a good thing. New games are coming out, man. It's a very exciting time. And this movie looks like it's my kind of movie, real upbeat, happy, fun time. So
right.
I suggest, you can't, if it's on Netflix,
there's no reason not to watch it.
It says here it's coming to Amazon, so I don't know if that means it's going to be Amazon
Of course,
Prime.
we shouldn't forget about all of our people, all of our fans outside the United States that might not have access to Netflix.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's coming to Amazon, so I don't know if it's going to be for sale on Amazon or if it's going to be part of the Amazon Prime package.
Right.
But, everyone's got access to iTunes, right?
That's true.
That God-forsaken interface. But if you're a glutton for punishment, you can go on iTunes and try to pull this thing down too. So last thing on the news front, our good and dear friends, the Guru Meditation. We love those guys, don't we, Vote?
Yes.
They have a new video, and I'll watch some of this. It's entitled "DIY Projects from Amy Party 21."
Look at that! Look at that camera work. These guys.
Oh man, this is like a little documentary.
I don't even know how you do that. Just like that shot, making things go in and out of focus.
You know how you do it? Skills.
Yes.
Skills that pay the
Talent,
bills.
yes.
And Bo, you don't undersell your own camera work, pal. We're both in frame, for example.
If we can do that, I feel like we've accomplished
let's
something.
face facts. We came at this way. Neither one of us have any experience.
No.
Ever mess with this stuff. But these guys clearly, they've been video toasting.
Yeah.
They've been.
Look at Amiga Bill
shucking
there.
and jiving. Look at the eyebrows.
Yep.
He's a good-looking man with a cool hat, and he's got a cool chair.
That's true.
Our chairs are pretty good though, but. Look at all in the back. He's got all that computer stuff going on. I mean, you got to give the guys credit, and they know their stuff too.
Yeah.
Knowledgeable and entertaining, the perfect combination. So,
You should turn us off and turn them on.
I was just thinking, I should be spokesman for these guys. But seriously, if you want to see some of their cool DIY stuff, and I looked at some of this, and it's, as Johnny Carson would say, it's wild, wacky stuff. And these guys are really getting in the nitty gritty of stuff I didn't know the Amiga didn't do that they wanted it to do. Like, what are they talking about here? So it's a good watch. All right, let's move on to site updates. We have a few site updates. Let's kick it off with Dreamcatcher, another one of the fine men that labor day in, day out for the Amiga community. And he's up to it again with an interesting Popeye sort of retrospective, I guess the only way to put it. Now, we've touched on a couple of these Popeye games, including Popeye 2 and Wrestle Crazy. And I've got to say, Popeye 2 could have been okay, but was actually not good. And Wrestle Crazy, I mean, it is straight up hot garbage.
And that continues to astound me because you love Popeye. You love wrestling.
I do.
You love wrestling games.
I was excited for that.
And yet, you even did an Amigos plays of this game, yet you refused to release it.
Yes.
It's like the guy that did The Day the Clown Cried. It's like,
Jerry Lewis?
Yeah. It's like, this is The Day the Clown Cried.
Hey, ladies. I did a Wrestle Crazy video, and I just couldn't. I was like, what in God's name's happening? It's a lot like I've had that same feeling a bunch of times this week. But yeah, it's. I mean, I will say one thing: they thought outside the box a Popeye game with wrestling and aliens. It's like, okay.
And it doesn't look bad. When you look at stills, you're like, oh, that looks all right.
Can be deceiving.
That's true.
Also, he goes into like Popeye and its relationship with Donkey Kong, which it's interesting. It's there. It's very. Popeye, was Popeye a big deal when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they still showed, Mr. Cartoon was still a big deal when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, I don't know, Bo. You're always talking about how old I am, but you're not super young.
No,
yourself.
I mean, it wasn't prime time like it was when you were a kid.
Do you like spinach, by the way?
I like raw spinach, but I cannot stomach the cooked stuff. I like canned spinach, not for me. I like a little baby spinach salad.
I think spinach should be burned. I'm not a big fan.
I cannot believe that you don't like a vegetable.
I like vegetables, deep fried with a breading. That's all I want. Moving on. Smart butt. Another Dreamcatcher joint. This time, Waking Up the Neighbors, the Paperboy saga. Have you looked through this?
I did. I have looked at this. Paperboy is one of my all-time favorite games. On the arcade, on the Nintendo, even on the Amiga got a pretty good port, I think, of Paperboy.
It did.
I was all about reading Dreamcatcher's look at this. Now, of course, Dreamcatcher, he starts things off with, I don't even know.
The next best thing the Dreamcatcher's films are his slide presentations.
Right.
Wacky as the day.
But he goes into the Captain N connection with Paperboy, but now something interesting. I don't like playing Paperboy on the original arcade console, like with the handlebars and stuff like that. I never got a handle on it. It never felt as good as just using a joystick or using a control pad.
Which one did you play first?
With a control pad.
Enough said.
Yeah.
I will say, when that Paperboy came out in the arcade, we were all like, look at this. Because that was something a little more unusual.
Yeah, and this was during that golden period in Atari, and it was a golden period in game development where Atari actually told their developers, do something completely different that's never been done before.
Yeah,
now in game development, it's do exactly what makes the most money.
And Paperboy's super unique.
It is.
I mean, really, I can't think of another game that was like it.
Yeah, I mean, this came out. I think all of these is this System 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it was one of their earlier ones.
Yeah,
but one before. I think it was before. It was one after Marble Madness.
But
right?
I think it's the same.
Before.
I think it's the same system, but like 720 was part of that too. Yeah. I think, and so just really cool.
It's
games.
Sharp.
Yeah,
it's sharp and colorful. I mean, you look at it now, it still looks great.
Yeah,
and it ported well. Who'd have thunk that? I remember for years I could never get across that second highway to get to the targets, and I knew, I was like, man, that looks cool up there. I could see the beginning going, it had to get ran over. Its cars, the timing was unbelievable. But they ported this thing to like everything. I mean, it had handheld releases, and it had multiple releases on multiple systems. Just a great game, iconic game. I think Dreamcatcher had one more release this week, but it's been repeatedly destroyed by the YouTube censors.
Yeah.
So we're working on that one.
So be on the lookout for a possible release of a new Fright Night video by Dreamcatcher. So look for that. All
yes,
right.
because people are clamoring for more Fright Night coverage.
That's right. If you couldn't get it, if you were hungering for more after our delicious review of the game.
It's funny, I was talking to a new girl at work.
About Fright Night?
Yes. We were talking about Scarefest, and I was like, hey, were you there the year they had Fright Night? And she was like, yeah, I was there that year. I was like, did you go to the Fright Night forum? She's like, I'm not a big fan of Fright Night. I was like, what?
I can't believe that she'd even know what Fright Night was.
How dare, you heard of Wizard of Oz? Wizard of Oz, Fright Night up here.
Oh, okay.
So high that my hand went off the screen.
Wow.
That's how high it was.
Wow.
Don't.
Just, you never know what you don't know.
You ready to hit the main event here? Or you got anything else?
I am. So we're going to talk about Dune today, and before we go on, we should mention that Dune was chosen by one of our Amigos Game Selection Committee members on Patreon. So if you choose to support Amigos at the Game Selection Committee level on patreon.com/Amigos podcast, you too can choose a game that will be the subject of an Amigos episode, just like Treyguard 1982 did with Dune, aka Adam Battersby.
You should probably go ahead and mention the chat angle.
Yeah, that's a thank you for bringing that up. I would almost forgot. We've added a new incentive to join us in the Patreon fold. We now have a Discord server. So if you sponsor us at any level on Patreon, you can join in on all the fun Amiga chat. We have, let me throw it up here on the screen real quick so you can see, we've got channels where we're talking about Amiga, retro gaming, modern gaming, various projects that mostly revolve around main machines, programming and coding stuff about Amos. A lot of things, yeah, a lot of things I don't understand. But you know, we've already got a pretty big community of active chatters involved. So we'd love it if you could come join us over on the Discord. So just one more reason you should think about supporting Amigos on Patreon.
We get a lot of action on there, don't we, bro?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to say, I had not used Discord before we started this little gimmick, and it's good.
It's a good service.
I really like it. You can do a lot of neat stuff on there.
And there's, you know, if you're already, lots of people are members of various Discord communities, and they all live in that sidebar, so you can switch back and forth. It's sort of like IRC, but updated for the new generation.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
plus, who doesn't want to chat about Amiga day and night?
All day,
plus other
all
retro
night.
games. It's a free-for-all in there.
It is, it is. All right, Aaron, it's Dune time.
Let's discuss, if we may, a little bit about Dune. Now, I will say before we begin, and as I've mentioned last week when we talked about doing this game, I have not seen the movie, nor have I read the books, nor had I played either of the Dune games on the Amiga. That said, I took a crash course in Duneology from my buddy at work, who is he's read the books, he loves the books, he's seen the movies. And so, in case, because it's sort of pertinent to the game, so I'm going to give a little brief synopsis. Now, you have seen the movie?
I've not seen the movie, but I read the book.
Okay, so you step in if you hear me screw up. And this is going to be super brief. Okay, so Dune. So in this world of Dune, there is the way intergalactic travel is done requires a substance called the spice. It's only found in one place in the entire universe, and that's on the Dune planet. The Dune planet's a water-free desert planet. And people mine the spice, and I'm not going to go into what it does, but it basically they use it to make these guys that navigate people through space. Okay? So, in the movie and in the game, your character is tasked with, they're plopped on this planet after another family or house is kicked off, and you're tasked with cranking up the production of this spice. And so people have to have this, and so if you don't do a good job, they will kill you, and they will kill your whole family. So that is the premise where this game sort of takes off, right? You are put on the planet, and your job is to go around and get people to do the work for you, get people to be your forces, your troops, And the number one thing is to make this spice. Because as the movie says, he who controls the spice controls the universe, right? I believe that was in the film. So with that in mind...
is Horatio Sands in this movie?
I haven't seen the movie.
Oh.
Is it the name?
Yeah. I was just
What's the
thinking
guy
about
that played?
Sands.
Remember the guy that played the Warlock in the Warlock films? Wasn't his name Sands?
You mean the guy? No, I was thinking about Willow. I don't know about the Warlock.
You ever seen
movies.
Warlock?
No. Is that a movie?
You never seen Warlock?
It doesn't
Oh,
sound
dude,
real.
it's great. You should go watch that. No, come on. You know someone to come up with a movie named Warlock.
It sounds too generic.
There's also a pinball machine, too. Anyway, I digress. So, this game came out in the wacky year of 1992. So, it was developed by an outfit called Cryo. Now, we're going to get into these guys later because their story is bizarre. They only did 2 games on the Amiga. They did a game called X-Tace. E-X-T-A-S-E. You want to try? Does that sound right? X-Tace?
Sounds good to me.
And they did KGB, which is
Yeah.
a much cooler sounding name. 3 big discs on this one. It's a big dog. Published by Virgin. Now, Virgin, of course, has done a lot of stuff that we've covered, including Golden Axe. They did Silkworm, Iron Man Stewart. They did a ton of stuff. So Virgin, big publisher. And this also had a budget release, and it was part of a pack, which I'll get to that later when we get to the eBay stuff. This thing was made in France. This is an outfit that was French. And a lot of the guys that did this game worked on a couple similar titles, similarly weird on the Amiga. Several of these guys worked on Purple Saturn Day, which we've talked about briefly. It's sort of a, have you ever played Purple Saturn Day? It's sort of a weird intergalactic summer games, I guess would be the best.
Okay.
And I mean,
that sounds good.
it's weird. It's a weird game, a very alien game. They also, a couple of these guys also worked on Captain Blood, which is another sort of a weird game. This game worked on ECS, OCS, and it really, it only got ported to a couple platforms, and there's a reason. There was a PC version of it, and there was a Sega CD version of this that came later. It should be noted that this game also released when the Mega Drive CD version came out. They were so impressed with the soundtrack that they released a audio CD of the soundtrack. Kind of neat, kind of unusual. This is one of the early games that got moved from disc to CD with some success. Okay, and as we've played it, you can see how that would happen because it has a lot of things. You can see where they could fit content from a CD on here, for movies and for audio and whatnot. So, why don't I'm going to let you describe the gameplay in this because it is varied and extensive.
Okay. Well, the game is a cross between several different genres. You spend a big part of the time, especially early game, going between different outposts on the planet to talk to people to get information and to convince these sort of different factions to work for you. And once you do that, then once you convince somebody to work for you, then you take off in your ornithopter. All of your transport in this game is done through ornithopter, and you go to a different place and do the same thing. In between that, you're a prince or some sort of royalty. You go back to the palace and you confer with your family and all these things. And what you're basically building toward is you're developing miners that are mining the spice for you. You have to watch the production, and eventually you start converting those miners to military units in which you kind of engage on this very low level combat or spying on other factions that are going on at the same time in the planet. This is about the extent of what I've been able to glean from playing this game for about an hour. It moves very slowly at the beginning, and without a lot of documentation, it's really a hard thing. I was very fortunate to be streaming this with the chat, and the chat really knew what was going on. They were kind of guiding me through what I needed to be doing. I actually, I made it up to the part where I had a pretty good spice production racket going. But even when I went back and watched a long play, and speed running this game still takes 5 hours to beat it. So this is not a short game. It was still hard for me to see exactly how combat works. So I was hoping that maybe through your research you might have uncovered a little bit more about that side of things.
Well, first things first, I can tell you, I spent a lot of time milling with this. And, I mean, I'll shot a video. It's much like the game we talked about earlier, Popeye Wrestling. I shot a video for this, and it was so hapless and pathetic that I was like, I can't use that. At first, it was a lot like drag racing. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And now, once my buddy told me what was going on with the film, it helped, so I could understand what exactly you were after. So early in this game, the strategy is the first thing you need to do is go out and talk to what are called the freemen, which are the humans that live and mine on this planet. They're not native, but they live there. and you can tell them because they've got blue eyes. The longer you're on this planet, the more spice you're exposed to, your eyes become blue. And so at first what you're doing is you're going out and you're trying to recruit these freemen to work for you in spice production or as a soldier. Eventually you have to obtain, and pretty early on, you have to obtain these special suits, still suits that you have to use to walk on the planet's surface. And the premise of this, I gotta say, I may have to watch this because the premise of it is pretty interesting, where the planet's so dry and there's so little liquid that you have to wear these suits that capture all the liquid that come off your body and recycle it into drinkable water in the suit. Kind of neat. And so there's a portion of this where you have to go and talk to the guy who created these, who will make you these suits, and he ships them to the castle. Then there's a part where you have to get one of your cohorts to get in your ship with you, and you fly around, and he basically is spotting out of the ship, and he'll spot these various points that you can land on, and when you go there, there are freemen that live there, and
so you
can recruit them.
Let me stop you right there, because transport in this game is interesting, because when you get in your ornithopter, it's not like you just a map opens up, you click on it, and then you land. You actually see your ornithopter traveling in what I like to describe as a Mode 7 kind of way, because it sort of looks like early Super Nintendo titles that like Pilot Wings or something like that, where it's a behind the back sort of look as you see the landscape coming, you know, the desert landscape travel beneath you.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
And but when you've got this guy, sometimes you'll just want to say fly east. And that's what, in addition to picking out a particular place, if you just say fly east or fly north, then that guy, that's when he'll stop you and say, oh, stop here. Here's where something's going on.
Right. And the funny thing about it is, first of all, we should probably explain what the ornithopter is. It's kind of like a dragonfly helicopter. That's the best way to put it. It's pretty cool looking.
It is. It looks awesome.
You know, actually. Now, having not seen the film, there's one thing that sets us apart is it's not just a strategy game. I mean, it truly is an adventure game, and what makes it an adventure game is your interaction with characters.
Right.
Like for example, the palace is full of people.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when you first talk to them, they introduce themselves effectively too. So like, I am so and so, your father, or I'm so and so, your mother. You know, and it sounds. I mean, it does sound dopey, but I mean, for someone like me, I was like, okay, thank you for telling me what's going on here. It helped. So, and there's one guy in there, and I guess he's the guy that tells you about your production. Every time you talk to him, he goes, "Remember, spice is important. For space travel, we got to have a ton." And he says the exact same thing every single time you talk to him. It's over and over and over. I just want to punch that guy. And I don't know, at some point maybe in the game you can get far enough where you can. But once you get to the point where you've got your spice production geared up, all right, you have to meet certain quotas from the Emperor. The Emperor is a jerk, and he always is on you. They're always on you for more and more and more. And so one thing, now again, not seeing the movie, but you read the books. I know my friend told me that as in the movies, as Paul, who is the title character, or not title character, but the main character, as you go forward, he develops certain powers through the spice, and he has been foretold that he would be there, and he gets powerful, really powerful. And again, I didn't get to the end of this, but from what I was told at the end of the movie or the end of the book, he effectively takes over the empire.
That's right.
He's the man.
That's right.
And he has mental powers that are ridiculous. He can do anything he wants. So you also sort of follow him on that journey because from what I read, and I didn't get this far in the game, but I'm watching the playthrough and reading some stuff on it. After a while, you can actually you gain these powers, and you can do certain things. Like it makes it easier to travel around, or it makes it easier to talk to people. You don't have to do all the traveling all the time. So that's kind of cool that they implemented that aspect of it. Basically, there's a balance you have to strike between mining and fighting.
And miming.
And miming, yeah. You get out of the glass wall. To me, this seemed like, again, given the week we had to prep this thing, it seems like this is a game I could sort of get into. I'll tell you what first. This is a lot, again, not to do a callback to another show, but it reminds me a lot of Dragster. When I first booted this up.
Right, and if you're wondering why we keep making Dragster references, it's because our other podcast, ARG Presents, we covered 2 Atari 2600 games, Dragster and Cosmic
Right.
Arc.
And so, much like Dragster, when I booted this up, I just sat there. I was like, what in God's name am I supposed to do? And so I just took my Hornithopter, whatever it's called.
Ornithopter.
And I can't even say it.
It's an O2 artifact creature with flying.
And I just took it out in the desert. I was like, I'm just going to drive around. Well, I got killed. No idea where I was going or what to look for. So you have to go through all the dialogue boxes. It's one of those games. You do get certain options that you can take when you're making your choices, which is kind of cool. And I don't know if there's a specific order in the way you have to do everything. It seemed like it was pretty. It seemed like there was a certain way I was doing stuff, but maybe I didn't get that far, so maybe I was doing it wrong. Once you get into the combat aspect of that, and I barely scratched the surface. I tried just to say I did. You're getting into you're getting into something in the neighborhood of a real-time sort of a strategy game, which not my bag. Mm-hmm. I showed it on this. I had no idea what I was doing. From what I read, if basically you amass an army, you go after another guy's army. If you've got more action, if you've got bigger amount of troops, you can take him out. If not, you're probably going to lose and take heavy losses. This game is deceptively deep. I mean, I was looking.
I wouldn't call it deceptively deep at all. I knew it was deep from moment one.
Well, I thought it was pretty deep, but when I really started getting into it, watching, play through, and read, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on,
mm-hmm.
And we knew this was going to be a tough one. When we first had a look at it, I was like, man, this is going to be a real hard one to deal with. So the funny thing is that really, to me, the interesting parts of this thing are actually behind the scenes stuff. So I mentioned this before. The outfit called Cryo that did this game, they basically competed with another outfit that did Dune 2. Okay, now, first of all, we should talk about Dune 2. Have you ever played Dune 2, Bo,
No.
at all? I had heard a ton about Dune 2.
Me too. I've heard a ton about it, too.
It's supposed to be the mother of all real-time strategy.
Right, yeah, real-time
strategy games. And it was supposed to be this big deal. So, Cryo, they had the idea for a Dune game. And there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. But the long story short is Cryo started doing this game. And they had a lot of rabid Dune fanboys that were working on the game. And it was taking them a while to do it. So their publisher basically said, listen, they basically gave up with Cryo, and they went to Westwood and said Dune game. And so Westwood began basically parallel work on Dune 2. They were released like a month or two apart. I mean, it's not like Dune 1 came out and then like Dune 2 was out like 2 years later, right? And this game has sort of the distinction of being the best ever Dune game for about a month. and what that means is basically no one talks about Dune. They always talk about Dune 2, mm-hmm. right? Having not played Dune 2, I couldn't tell you if it's better or worse, but it's certainly probably a lot different. This game has a lot of character in it, and what I like about it is, you can tell a lot of time has been spent researching. A lot of time has been spent on the graphics. Everything in it looks pretty tight. The gameplay itself is pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever played a game quite like it, and I wish I was more into the subject matter, but it sort of made me kind of want to see Dune now. I watched about 10 minutes of Dune, turned off 20 years ago. But I could see me getting back into it. The added bonus of this is Cryo was sort of known for putting out just utter garbage. Now, I've got a list of some of their titles here. And the funny thing is I've heard of a lot of these. And some of them I thought were okay. But, I mean, they're renowned for just putting out really... People describe them as people that were very passionate about trash. Like they would put out games that really put a lot of...
like John Waters.
Well... Yeah, I guess so in a lot of ways. Yeah, I suppose so. They were behind stuff like Mega Race, for example. Do you remember the Mega Races?
I remember Omega Race.
No. These were like car racing games that were very prominent during the era of CD-ROM acceptance, right?
Okay.
They put out a lot of games based on like public domain stories. Like Atlantis or something like that. Just and they'd put out a CD game, and they were known for like these sort of like Myst clones. If you ever played Myst, where it's sort of a nicely rendered game, the puzzle game effect. You ever played Myst?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, hey, not everyone has, but think of like the Kmart version or the Blue Light Special version. That's what these guys are known for. They did linger around for a while, amazingly long time, and they ended up being picked up by an outfit called HomeSoft from Infogrames in 2002, and then they filed for bankruptcy in French courts soon thereafter. So they, unfortunately, but I mean, 2002, not too bad, all things considered.
Good run.
But, this is one of those games, and we talked about this with Syndicate too, where I don't feel like, given our constraints, that we fully delved into it. But on the surface, and at least for I probably got to put about 5 hours into this thing on and off. It was interesting. It got me into the story, and I could see why people would be into it, and especially if you're into Dune. The characters in it are interesting, and the concept of a planet like this. I mean, when I go over the story, there's a lot of subtext and stuff, and a lot of it's in the game. There's stuff going on with the Emperor. There's a reason why the original house got kicked off the planet. Those guys are still around. You've got to fight them in the game. And they're super duper evil too. A real evil. Another thing in this game and in the movie that was wacky is that when people die, their water gets harvested from them. They just squeeze them like sponges, basically. And you get a ticket if you like kill someone, for example. They'll give you a ticket for that guy, the amount of water that guy added to the cistern or whatever.
It's a crazy world, for sure.
That's a neat concept that you give a ticket that says I get a cup of water.
The thing that sticks with me with Dune is that it's not your typical action fantasy story. This is a very political and a very thoughtful economics. This guy really fleshed out the world.
Yeah, man, just my buddy was talking about this, and the amount of stuff going on. Like, for example, his mother has sort of like witch powers, and that comes to play in the game. She'll make these predictions, and she can sort of like will people.
Yeah, she can sense secret passages in the palace.
Right,
yeah.
and in fact that comes up pretty early. I got to that part where there's like a control room in there.
Right.
But in the movie, my buddy said she could use almost like mental influence on people, so like the Force or whatever, So that's kind of interesting, and the aspect of the spice, what it does. The big worms in Dune, which you've seen, are called spice worms, and if you watch the opening of this, they pop up out of the desert, and they're the things that make the spice, and these things are like stories and stories tall, and they're on the planet, when you mine stuff, you've got these things called thumpers that come out and they hit the ground to lure the worms away from where the mining's happening. And when the worms get near the mines, you got to get them out of there. The worms come up and eat them. It's like getting eaten by something that's like 4 blocks wide.
Right.
And as you get onto the game, and I saw a guy doing this, and I was like so envious. You get powerful enough to ride those things like a horse. And it looked awesome. I was like, man, that looks really cool. I kind of wish they would have done a little more with that 3D. I mean, I don't know if they get to the point where I don't think there's any sort of like Starship style combat or something like that. But I mean, the engine they use, is pretty good. It's pretty smooth looking, So I'll give them credit on that. But overall, I thought it was interesting. It was more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about this one, but I had a good time with it from what I got to play.
Well,
I'd probably come back to it.
There was one thing you didn't mention, and that is the Tolkien Dune connection.
Which I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know Aragorn's race, don't you? He's one of the Dunedain.
Is that a stupid pun?
No, not at all.
What? So let's talk about reviews. I review that joke at a negative mail. Where's that French magazine when I need it? Right
Amiga
now?
Joker.
Amiga Joker. So the reviews on this were pretty good. Amiga Action gave it 80s. You know, a lot of 80s in here. I don't think anyone really killed it. They didn't. And none of my stuff. It got it anywhere from a 90 down to a 79. That's not bad. So a solid B title.
One thing that we didn't talk about that I can't believe you didn't mention.
Okay.
This is probably this is Amigos episode 132.
Okay.
Okay.
Gosh, that many, eh?
Yeah. This is probably my favorite music from any game that we've ever reviewed. I love the music in this game. Do you remember it at all?
I do. Well, I mean, it got a CD made when it got put it over to the Red Book audio. It's very good. It's very good.
I love the music. In fact, as I'm going to edit this episode tonight, I'm going to play music. I'm going to play the music from this game as I'm editing the episode. I can't wait to listen to it.
I will say this: the guys that did the music, one guy I don't know how much of a part he played was a guy named Alexandre Ekian. He did the music for KGB, but the other fellow, Stefan Peak, did the music for Bubble Ghost, and Bubble and Cult. Cult's another weird game. Everything around these guys is weird. At Purple Saturday and also did Warlock. Did a bunch of other stuff. So the musician had the most Amiga work, and there's a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's solid. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's the best music I heard of any game we've covered because Turrican 2 is awful good.
Turrican 2 is pretty
Shadow
good.
the Beast is awful good.
Not my bag.
There's a lot. We've heard a lot of good tunes. I'll tell you something that has great music is Pinball Dreams. If you listen to those tunes are great in there. If you listen to Pinball Fantasies, even better. So I mean, of course, those guys were dudes that did demos, so you would expect that. But yeah, the music is good, and I got to give a nod to, like I said, the guy that did the graphics, the profiles. They're sharp. I mean, it's like someone took one of those old graphic adventures and just smashed a strategy game up in it. You know, and it really works.
But like, you know, they didn't have to animate these still frames. They could have just had the text pop up in a bubble. There's a lot of small touches like that I really appreciate.
Yeah, and the interface was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? One thing we didn't mention also is that the game has an in-game reference guide. If you click on the book in the GUI there, you can read about different aspects of life on the planet, different characters and things like that, which is pretty cool. It was pretty rare for games to have that stuff in-game at this time.
Everything I read told me that the guys that worked on this were like huge Dune geeks. And that's one thing that really comes through. You can tell these guys really were into the books and then the movie, and everything I've read that people that are big fans of the book and the movie appreciate it.
There's even a day-night cycle in this game.
Yeah, it has sure. Actually, it keeps time, which is interesting. It didn't help me any, but it's still kind of neat. eBay. So it's fun. This is what I wanted to touch upon earlier about compilations. I could not, and I know here comes Boat with his magical keyboard. He's going to find this thing in a heartbeat. But I could not find anyone selling just Dune by itself. What I did find were people selling a double pack of Dune and Power Monger. And I found several of them. I found $35 US coming out of the UK. And some had sold recently, including in the US, which I'm assuming that this got a U.S. release.
That's an odd combination because Power Monger was a Bullfrog game.
Well, I've not played.
That's
Power
Peter
Monger.
Molyneux.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's the compilation was sold for $20 in the U.S. a couple months or so ago, half a month, and $30 in France. So you're looking at, if you can find the double pack, you're probably looking at somewhere between the $30 and $40 mark. The actual just the game itself. Like I said, I didn't see anyone selling it or having sold it in the time frame. I looked at one, and I like the box too. It's kind of cool looking. I I don't know. It's just kind of stark, but it's kind of neat. But if you've got one, you may have something. Like I said, I have no idea what the price would be on now.
Yeah. Well, cool. As we wrap up our episode, I'd just like to remind everyone to follow Amigos on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, plus our ever-expanding Google Plus presence.
Hey, almost up to, I believe, 250.
You can also join us in the chat. We record most Fridays live around 5:30 Eastern, just like Tregard, Dasley, Laurent Giroux, Pixels at Dawn, Pishbot, Henrik, all kinds of folks hanging out with us. Paul in the chat. So make sure, it's always a good time. Sometimes the chat is more entertaining than the podcast itself. Feel free to join us on YouTube. One thing, Aaron, is that there are some people that are subscribed to us, and they say that they never get notifications of when we go live. Just wanted to tell everybody a reminder, you've got to click the bell beside the subscribe button. That will send you an email notification whenever we're recording live. You'll get that notification so you don't miss Amigos and ARG Presents Live. Speaking of ARG Presents, that is a new show that we've just started doing. We just recorded episode 2, which will come out this coming Wednesday. In this show, we talk about 2 games from a different system every week. So if you like our Amiga talk and you want to hear our thoughts on other games on other systems, make sure you subscribe to us at amigosretrogaming.com, or you can go on iTunes, or it's the same YouTube channel, Amigos Retro Gaming. So if you're already here, you're already here. Aaron, it's time to thank the Patreon supporters.
Oh, okay. What you got in mind this week, Bo?
Well, I figured I'd bring out the old guitar.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to put this up. The list has gotten to be at a point where I can no longer read it off the paper. I have to.
You should have it memorized, Bo.
I know. I should. I was thinking about doing it backwards, but then that would be too crazy.
You should have like a $20 Patreon level, and if you or 10 or whatever, and if at that point Boat has to put your name in memory. He has to. That would be awesome.
What do you mean, like put it in memory?
I mean, you have to have their name
like
memorized and ready at all times.
Okay.
Like we could quiz you.
Okay.
Like in the middle of the show, I could be like, "So Dune was great, and here's what, Boat, what's that guy's name?" And you'd be like, Brent Smith. And if you don't get it, I get to punish you somehow. That'd be fun.
If you're interested in that, folks, please write in Amigos at AmigosPodcast.
See, I'm full of ideas.
All right, here we go. Donald, Tyler Levelord, John Marshall, Matthew Perrone, Ricky DeRocha, Creepy Dead Boy, Vicky CTC, The Slow Norris, Stefan Sorgan Mortensen, Evan, Helen, Belinda, 75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Foles, Dreamcatcher, Lauren Giroux, Graham Bibb, Brent Dowdy, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro Vintage, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Anthony Jarvis Tapes from the Crib, Josh Nan, Will Williams, Adam Bradley, Jonas Ruler, THC, Eric Nelson, Kim, Tommy Humbert, Stad, Daniel Biggs and Brittle, Barracuda, Daniel Coles, Justin Warren, Pixels Don, Colburn, Barman. Wasn't really able to get through as much as the song as I would have liked.
No, you picked a good song though.
Yeah, I needed.
You could have had 100.
I know.
Patreons, and you could have gotten through that one.
I'm keeping that one in the old memory banks for when our.
Oh, that's the one you're going to keep.
We've got like around 6,000 Patreon supporters. Then I'll be able to actually make it through the first verse.
Yeah, we'll be able to perform that show from the beaches of. We'll be living big if we have 6,000 Patreons.
That's true. That's true. That's lazy game reviewer numbers. All right, Aaron. Next week we are going to take a look at everyone's favorite. It's sort of a Metal Slug clone, Rough and Tumble.
Yes, we had a cup of coffee with this game, I believe, on the marathon.
Yeah, and this is a very well-loved title, so hopefully we'll do it justice.
Beauty.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then,
adios.
All right. So how'd you like that? Think that was pretty good? We're still streaming, so don't say anything too crazy.
So I'll wait to kill you later. But no, I mean, hey, the truth is the truth. That's a tough game to get through, and adios.
Hey, Tregard was happy with that, so we're glad you're happy, Tregard. We did the best we could.
I'll tell you something, Tregard. It was much more interesting than I would have guessed in a million years. I mean, honestly, I'd never had any plans on getting into Dune, But actually, now I kind of want to watch the movie and I like the game. So
Rough and Ready. Is it Rough and Ready or Rough and Tumble?
you said it, pal. That was your choice.
I don't even think either one of those is right. Maybe it is. I don't know.
You always screw it up. You screwed it up in your own Amigos play.
Rough and Tumble. I said it right.
I remember that because we had to go back and relabel it, didn't we?
Yeah. Who knows? Well, and then there's that isometric game that is like head over heels, but there's something that seems like there's like a rough and something.
You got me, man.
I don't know.
Are we into bonus time now?
We're into bonus time now.
Hi, Bud. How's it going?
It's going well.
It's the post show.
So I'm thinking about we're actually going to call this. Oh, let me.
We have a name.
Let me get that back over there. Well, Amigos Overtime. That's not bad, Pixels of Dawn. I was thinking about Amigos Extra, but Amigos Overtime sounds better.
How about Too Stupid to Stop?
Hey, Ricky. How's it going, man?
You should have said old Ricky.
Oh, Ricky. You're so fine.
That's right.
I got a letter
Oh,
from
yeah?
from Blindo75.
Uh-huh.
He lives up near in the Upper Panhandle, West
yeah.
Virginia. And you know, he was big in the we were talking about that. We were watching something that had the credit card numbers crack screen. Remember that
Yeah.
the other day? He said he was back into that.
What?
Yeah, he was into, or not back into it. Yeah, he's gone back into a life of crime.
You just blew my mind. I'm back in this deal.
I'm
I'm
gonna
write you a
steal.
nonchalant letter about it.
I'm gonna start stealing phone cards. I don't even know if phone cards exist anymore.
Not saying, oh, I'm a white slaver, Bode, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. I beat up on women for their purses.
But he says that he was part of a elite cracker group that used to traffic and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
No kid, Blindo, you bad boy.
yeah, and he said that they used to make fun of him because he actually played the games. Because, you know, if you were in one of these cracking groups, the games were not important. You had to get the 0-day release to the BBS. The game itself was immaterial. And so he ended up, he said in the end he just wanted games, not notoriety, and certainly not jail time. So he was actually kicked out of his local cracking group because of that.
Wow.
He also felt bad. He said he meant no harm and truly meant to cause no controversy by asking for Top Banana to be reviewed. And so,
That was Blindo. I knew. Well, you know, that episode, I don't always go back and listen to an episode. A lot of times I listen to them in the car to see how they sound on the radio. But I've probably listened to Top Banana 4 or 5 times. Something about that episode, it's so... The amount of vigorous hate that we gave to that game, it amuses me. It's
That's hilarious.
We don't really kill a game very often, but if any game deserved to die, it was Top Banana.
yeah.
You know, so in actuality, and me and Bode had a legitimate argument before we actually filmed that about me not wanting to do it because it was so bad. So I'm glad I got overruled on that one.
Laurent says he enjoyed the Jim Power show. It reminded him of his early game development days.
Oh man,
So,
we've got a couple people in here that did get game stuff like
Yeah.
that. How do you? I mean, we can't. Can you imagine that? I wish I had that kind of jack.
oh man, me too.
I can't. I couldn't make nothing.
I wish I had any kind of real discernible skill.
You've got. Hey, you're the real estate mogul, sir,
No.
and the cryptocurrency messiah.
I'm just working for the man. That's all I do.
Well, hey, buddy, I know you feel. By the way, did you see that the suggestion up there? Amigos extra chip memory enabled or whatever that went by.
Oh yeah, I like that.
That's about right. I
Yeah.
can use some of that. I need more memory, literally.
Megalomania, you played that before?
I keep hearing that one, and I've not played it.
Yeah, that's another Molyneux thing, I think.
No.
Didn't he make that before Populous?
Megalomania?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It's another
Maybe he
small
did.
sprite deal. Man, I bit my tongue. I was actually
Well done.
seriously
Oh.
worried that I wasn't going to be able to make it through the show. I'd be slurring my speech Trump style.
What did you do?
I was eating cereal this morning. I like bit through the side of my tongue.
Oh, geez.
So whenever I talk a whole lot, it just starts hurting
Don't
real bad.
eat cereal that vigorously.
I know.
man.
I was really going to town on this Kashi Go Lean this morning.
Yeah, it says there Megalomania is some sensible software. I didn't think
Sensible.
that was right.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know.
You're
what I'm
on
talking
some
about.
kind of super crack tonight.
Yeah. I was checking to see about anything else in here. But he said that this is Blindo again. He said that his main Amiga contact was divorced, and his entire living room was filled with custom-made floppy storage tables.
Whoa.
I guess after you get divorced, you know, you've got to do something with all that extra space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now we can store all that crap on one SD card
Right.
or whatever. It's a lot easier.
Right. He said his collection was about half the size of that Bamiga thing.
I had a pretty sizable collection until recently myself. I never want to let it go, but man, I ran out of places to store that.
It's got to feel freeing to not have to lug those totes around anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff that I've gotten rid of, it's just because I felt bad. It's like, why am I sitting on this? So it had to go. But that was an add-on to the selling the 1200 that was botched up. So man, it's sad to let stuff go. What really kills me is throwing away all those videotapes I had. I had them.
I know you love your VHS.
Well, I mean, they're all gone, and it was tough. But I mean, it's tough. Sometimes you just gotta let go. I'm trying to learn to let go of things. I'm not some kind of hoarder, but I mean, I do like to keep stuff. Oh, give me a break.
No, you're not. You're not a hoarder. So, you have you bought anything this week? You get any new pickups?
This is not the week to buy stuff. As I mentioned about earlier, I've got one of these all-in-one furnace air conditioning units, and it went up this week, so I've got no heat. And so I've been laboring under the cold at home and having to use little space heaters. And I just found out that I'm going to have to drop about 7 large on a new system. And I don't have 7 large, so it's going to be some interesting economics.
What is 7 large for those people that don't live in our country?
$7,000 US dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I will be an indentured slave to the Ashworth HVAC Society over there. So, but I will say I played a lot of. I looked through a lot of different Raspberry Pi images this week in my spare time, and I'm going to. I've got a new one that I'm excited about. But I play. I played a lot of. I hate to say this, but I mean they're my go-to systems now. When it's not Amiga, and it's Atari 8-bit and the C64. I have been going through the library. Again, the C64 I had very little experience with, which is weird that because we kind of do a Commodore thing. But I played a lot of Commodore 64 this week, and I've also played a lot of games on both systems to see which one is better. And it's kind of interesting because what opened my eyes is when we did Mule a while back. Mule and the Atari, it crushes the Commodore version. It's just better in every way. Mm-hmm. And Blue Max, I tried that on both systems, and Atari's better on that one too. So I think the Atari's sort of underrated on some of the stuff.
Well, I think that the Atari, by most measures, aside from the SID chip, is a better machine. Commodore was able to undercut Atari on price and sell a lot more units.
And I'll tell you another one where Atari was the clear choice. Was the Miner 2049. I haven't played both of those.
Really? Now, I would think those would be pretty similar. What was better about it?
Have you played any of Miner 2049 before?
Yeah.
When the Atari version where you get ready to start a level, it goes, burr, 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 burr. That's not on the Commodore version. The sound effects are better on the Atari. Plus, like, for example, the elevator level, right? On the Commodore version, I went over to the elevator, I hit the number 2, nothing happened. Well, you don't use the keyboard on it. Oh. The light just goes from 4, 3, 2, 1. And after you've played the other for a while, that's kind of jarring. You're like, well, that's weird. Just little stuff like that. I mean, it's not like it's a major deal. You can tell I've been playing a lot of old computer stuff. I played some Odyssey this week. I played some real wacky stuff on the Amiga. I just tried playing some just random stuff. We had an article come up, I think Brutal Barracuda did on all the wrestling games on the Amiga, and so I went back and tried a couple of those again, and those are just terrible. I mean, you just cannot get into any of them. So I played some of that this week too. So actually, I played a lot of games when I had a chance, and Dune took up some of my time as well, just trying to understand what was going on with that. I mean, this was a tough week to play anything, and this was the worst week for me to play Dune because I had a lot of draws on my attention that were from the heating and from other stuff that made it difficult. But but I still got a lot of it in, and really, like I said, it clicked with me after hearing my buddy tell me what Dune was. That made I look at me playing that game before that and after, and afterwards I was like, okay, here's the mom, here's the dad, this is this evil guy, I know what's going on. It made a lot more sense.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to playing Skate or Die because I played the NES version almost exclusively. And whenever I see you look like that, I know you're not listening to me and you're reading the chat.
No, I was listening. Something about
you have this look and because you're focusing in.
Pickles, right? Something about pickles.
What are they talking about in the
Skate
chat?
or Die.
Hey, I'm glad that you're looking at the Atari 8-bit, Laurent. It is a much... we were just talking about this. It's not really much underspoken about, but I don't think it gets the recognition it deserves. It's a great little system.
Well, I mean, listen, the Atari and the Commodore, you can see where the schoolyard fights would come. They're very similar machines.
Okay, the only thing you have to say is which one did Jay Miner design?
Well, no, you don't have to say. You can say more than that.
That's all you have to say.
The C64 is a grand computer. It really is.
Is it though?
It is. I think it's a good computer.
Here's all you need to know about the C64. Jack Tramiel was too cheap to design its own version of BASIC, so it shipped with VIC-20 BASIC.
Well,
which is like 20 columns.
Listen, a lot of people license Microsoft's BASIC too. Doesn't mean they're cheap. They just got what they got. And I don't know much about VIC BASIC. Maybe it was good. I don't know.
No, it's terrible.
Wow.
You've never used VIC BASIC before?
Have you?
I live in VIC BASIC.
Have you ever touched a VIC in your whole life? You goofball. Good Lord. You know, that reminds us something I should have mentioned this on the show. I saw a video. Maybe I'm late to the party, and maybe some of the guys in the chat, I'll ask you guys. Have you guys seen the video of someone actually playing the Commodore Mini? Have you seen actual physical gameplay? Here's the unit. Here's what it looks like. Here's where you plug stuff in.
How was it?
It looked good. It looked pretty good. It looks just like you thought it looked like. It's actually a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. It's a decently sized unit. I wonder if they couldn't have, I don't know, maybe if they put a few more bucks in it, just made it a little bit bigger and had a working keyboard. I think that not having it looks like you could just go and start typing. It's dead on. But it's bigger than a Raspberry Pi, smaller than a C64. It's somewhere in the middle. All right. It looked pretty good. The joysticks look okay. I mean, the games looked pretty good. I hadn't seen all the games before, but I saw some of them, and they looked pretty good to me. You know.
I don't think that we're ever going to see a mini console with a working keyboard, but I think that what they should have done that would have been a cost-saving measure but still give you that is put a USB port in it and let you hook up a USB keyboard to it.
I think you can. I think you actually can do that.
Oh, okay.
It does have USB ports. So I don't know for sure. I don't think the guy mentioned it, but I would not be surprised if you could not do that. I wouldn't be terribly. The thing is, if you've got something that has USB ports on it, you would be a fool not to put the interface in there to support them.
Yeah.
And so now will that mean anything? And since it's made for people to, I'm probably overthinking that because really you're getting this to play the games on the keyboard be damned, I guess. But it seems like if you've got that, you might as well use it. But there you go. But it looks good. I mean, I thought it looked, the price is okay. They'll sell some of them, and it gives me hope. Hey, maybe we'll get an Atari 8-bit Mini one of these days.
I'd love it if they designed it on the 400, with the membrane keyboard. It would
that way, that'd be perfect because you wouldn't have to have a working keyboard then either. It barely worked when it was new. Much like the Odyssey 2's keyboard, it was a tough sell on those membrane keyboards, but they were dirt cheap. I see the battle rages on.
Yeah. C64 is 40 columns. All right, C64 is 40 columns. You
don't want to match wits with these masters here, but this is out of our element here.
The only thing I know about the VIC-20 is William Shatner was on the box.
That's right. Sign me up, man. I want one.
Have you seen that show with Shatner and Terry Bradshaw?
Everyone tells me it's tremendous. I've not seen it.
You should watch it. It's
all my
good.
buddies are in the cheesy crap roll.
It's cheesy crap, but it's great.
I like George. I like really all those guys.
Yeah,
are cool,
they're all great guys.
Winkler and Foreman. I mean, that's what an odd eclectic band they put together in that show.
And all they do is make fun of each other.
Yeah,
it's great.
I started watching season 3 of Better Call Saul. Finally,
we've talked about it, but I still haven't seen it.
It's good. It's good, and I've gotten other recommendations from my buddies for some other stuff to watch. I don't have. Do you get to watch TV that much? I mean, honestly,
no.
When you do get spare time, are you playing games or
reading
or what are you doing?
A lot of times, whenever I have free time that I don't have anything else to do, I try to pick up a book. But a lot of times, I'm prepping for the next week's show, I'm getting the backgrounds ready and stuff like that. I spend a lot of time just doing the podcast stuff.
It's funny the podcast. I've tried gangbusters to get Teresa to do something. We talked about this before. And I tell her it's not about money. It's not even about how good at it you are. It really is something that's entertaining, and it gives you something to think about and ponder, and it's a little time of the week where you can sort of be creative.
Yeah.
I like to do the Amigos plays sometimes where I just sit there and pick out a game, and I've got my little microphone there, and I just chat, and it's fun. And sometimes just talking to yourself, it can be therapeutic. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah. Well, it's like after this show, like I always notice things like right here in the game, like I'm going to move this box over, and then so I can make us bigger because I think we're too small in this window, and there's all this empty space here.
I think you should make us smaller.
just totally.
Yeah.
Just.
I think really if you can
right
kind
there,
of box me out.
That's perfect. But I've learned how to do all kinds of great stuff that I'm actually doing with my work at West Virginia State, where I'm taping these. Like I know how to do matting now, and I can mat out different parts of videos and combine them in new and interesting ways. And so I'm really learning Premiere Pro really well. And now the real estate thing, like it's been quiet lately. Like I said, that guy just he had me come over to his house, and he gave me all this stuff to work on because he's building again. And so I'm gonna start that up again.
You know what I've been missing as I've fooled with OBS a lot and stuff recently is our green screen. I know you hated that thing, but it was so much fun to be able to like be right behind the game. It was so cool.
You built a green screen thing in your room.
Oh no, as soon as things settle, I'm gonna be back in green screen.
In fact, you can use our green screen. It's now in a bag in the closet.
You never know
back
we're gonna
there.
need to break that thing out though.
Well,
maybe I'll just wear your green disgusting suit.
Hey, that thing is going to be back next Halloween.
God, that was a nightmare. Of all the things Teresa's like, you remember that thing that Boat wore? I was like, of all the things we ever did, I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty memorable.
So, are you making any progress on Teresa's Haunted History podcast?
No, 0%. I'm working, but it's a no go. Maybe I'll do a paranormal podcast.
Aaron's
next.
Haunted History podcast.
That's right. I am the foremost authority on burial mounds in the tri-state, according to me.
Hey, I don't think anybody in the chat would argue with you.
Oh man, they might. They'd probably with these guys. They're all smart, man. And one of them, so you think you're good at burial mounds, do you? It's like, oh geez, here we go, man.
He's like, I was down in South Charleston last weekend.
Hey, while we're on here chatting, you got to talk to me about your arcade Raspberry Pi gimmick that you've got. So what did you just use an iPack to do the interface on that?
Yeah, so I have an old school expensive iPack that I purchased when, well, I guess I've bought 2 of those because I had one in the Double Dragon machine too.
Yeah.
But I have that wired up and then USB right into the Pi. It picked it up immediately. Of course, it registers as a keyboard.
Yeah.
And
what are you using it for your front end on Raspberry Pi, if I may ask?
Just RetroPie.
Just strictly arcade?
No, I've got a build that it's the same build that I've been putting in the ones I've been building for people.
It's a real kind of generic one.
Yeah, but eventually what I'm going to do is just I've got to figure out because I'm dealing with limited space. I got a 32 gig card.
Yeah, well, you can get a lot on there.
Yeah,
though.
the thing about MAME that kills me is that it's not like a normal thing where you just drag and drop the ROMs that you want. You know this. Like there are some ROMs where you have to have other ROMs to get those work, like Galaga, for example.
That's why I usually get a complete set. That way I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
I saw you guys chat and you're like, well, look at this. I only want stuff from 84 back, or whatever. And that's great. But I mean, in all honesty, unless you go ahead and just get a complete set, you're going to come across weirdness. That's why. And I'm paranoid about it because I mean, you're right. I mean, do I play 80% of the games? No. But I mean, if you don't have them, you never know what's going to call back on.
The thing that's great about Hyperspin is that it's not pulling from a folder. It's pulling from an XML file. So you put the whole set on your drive and it's there, but then you only put the games that you want to have Hyperspin see in an XML file.
See, that's what I hate about Hyperspin because it was a pain in the butt to rig up.
It's a pain in the butt, but once it's going, it's great.
I just put all the ROMs in there and then not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And you can.
But
there are programs you can use that will go through and separate a ROM set. And they'll take out whatever you want.
Right, but you're doing just as much work at that point as if you used Hyperspin.
No, absolutely not. It's just literally you have a folder full of ROMs. You say get rid of these, and it just gets rid of them.
An XML file is a text document that has names of ROMs in it.
For every ROM.
For every ROM that I want, which is like 40 games.
Well, I want more.
Okay,
40
so this is
games is all you want?
Yeah, seriously.
That is a monumental waste. I could think of 40 good games in 10 seconds, I could reel off 40. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of great games.
Not that I
Plus,
really want to play.
you rob yourself of the ability to discover new games.
No, because you still have MAME on your computer. So if you ever want to play something different, you just don't load Hyperspin.
This is what favorites is for. You go through your list, you pick out your 40 games, you put it in favorites, you hide the other list.
That sounds like GameX nonsense to me.
Oh, man. Poor Boat. Poor naive, simple Boat. Stick to video production, pal.
Looks like Pishbot plays 700 MAME titles.
I saw that. Pishbot gets it. Thank you, Pish. He is down with the clown. Now, I'm getting ready to start. I told you I'm going to build a guy the new
So what's your cab for this?
Oh, he's got a cab.
Okay.
It's actually it's another MAME I built. He's the guy that bought my first MAME. It was an old time killer.
Is this the guy in Lexington?
That is.
Okay.
And normally I was going to be like, screw this. But then again, suddenly $7,000 of debt crept into my life. So now I'm like, I'm eager to help.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be. He's also looking for arcade machines. He's looking for Centipede. He's looking for Phoenix.
There was a Centipede that was just for sale here in Charleston a couple weeks ago.
I saw that. He's looking for a bunch of old titles, right? And Miss Pac-Man was one. Like he wanted 5 or 6 things. He's also looking for pinball machines. He's a real estate guy. He had a good year last year, and he's looking to blow up his arcade. And so I'm going to help him locate some of these games and
take a little off the top,
man. You got to
take at least 25%.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to fleece the guy, but he's a good guy. But hey, Daddy got to eat.
That's
you know
right.
What I'm saying? So
that's right.
I'll be getting me some, but I'm going to be putting together some sort of pie setup for him, something with no moving parts that I can give him, and just let him go. I don't have to worry about him.
You should get him one of those things that you were trying to convince me to do instead of the pie.
To put it in perspective, his MAME cabinet that I built for him is so old. It ran on DOS, and it booted off a floppy drive. It had a 20 gig hard drive in it, and it had the video card in it. I had to run an old, incredibly old program the video card runs right into the monitor. There's no interface at all. And I have to run a program that changes the way the video card does certain resolutions to get it to output to the arcade monitor. It was crazy time because, there was no one doing this stuff back in the day. There's very few people. And I was the only person I knew that had a MAME cabinet for years and years before I finally saw other people. Now everyone's got one. The thrill is gone. But, now you can whip one up like that, too.
Right.
I remember labor on this thing day and night for months to get it to look right. The whole monitor interface.
Oh, yeah. Well, I went through that with my Double Dragon machine before I put an LCD in it. You've got to run that thing. It's called, Hertz-a-meter or something like that.
Oh, no. This is even older than that. That didn't exist. But, yeah, I've had to use that, too.
Yeah.
Working with a CRT is and there's always a chance it's going to blow up or shock you.
To me, there's no. If you're running an original board, it's fine to keep a CRT in there. But if you're running a MAME machine, you're already running a MAME machine. Put an LCD in there.
I can understand why people want a CRT. I have no problem with that. The only problem is you've got to be ready to deal with the headaches. That's all. And I got to a point where the genuineness of using a CRT, the annoyance of it outweighed its coolness. I just was like, screw it. I'm done.
Right.
Plus the extra money you have to put into it, and the fact if it breaks, that we had a CRT in that big machine at Brent's house. When that thing went down, you were boned. That's why we stuck our TV in there.
Yeah.
You were screwed. So I'm old and I don't have time to devote to recapping these things anymore. I just can't do it. So the Pi is a nice alternative.
Yeah.
That's just the way I look.
Well,
at it.
it's great. And this. Oh, which reminds me. The PC back there you can take with you and see if you can resurrect it from death.
I'll have a look at it.
What's great about the Pi is that you turn it on and it comes on in 5 seconds. You don't have to load Windows.
I don't know about 5 seconds. It take longer than that.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's longer than 5.
They load up for a while. You just never turn them off.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Yeah.
I've got a computer in the arcade now, which doesn't really. The computer's the way to go if you've got one sitting around. But the Pi, for sheer, once you've got it working, and there's a learning curve there, you have to get, Linux for the uninformed is no picnic, brother, to get in there and do some real intricate stuff.
Yeah.
But once you get good enough knowledge where you can do it it's okay. It's a lot like the Xbox. It's very similar.
Yeah.
You
The
have to
Pi
wa-
is even easier though because you just download an image and you format your SD card with the image and you put the SD card in the Pi.
Right. Well, I mean, once you get your Xbox mod, it's pretty simple. But when you want to add stuff or
Yeah,
whatever,
adding stuff is weird because you got to FTP in and stuff like that.
yeah,
but-
it gets a little headier. But yeah, but hey, the end result, lots of fun arcade stuff, and that's always good. So yeah.
All right, man. You ready to pack this thing up for the
Yeah.
night?
Thanks for sticking with us,
Yeah.
y'all. You know, I don't know if that was the most exciting thing to talk about. The 1084. Go back down for a second. You know, I just got rid of 2 of those, LaRon. And again, it was the exact same thing. I had fixed one, and I had just picked up another that was broken. And I'm like, man, do I want to continue to carry these around? And I had one in my back of my car for months because I didn't know where to put it. And I was like, someone somewhere can use these. And I hate to get rid of them because those monitors are good monitors. But I mean, CRTs, they're big, they're bulky, they could break at any time. And I felt like, I hate to be that guy that says this, but I felt like I rarely say this, but I'm not the guy that can appreciate this right now. Someone else can get some benefit out of it because I'm just sitting here for me. Normally, I just order it anyway. Mine. But yeah. So 1084, I sent them all packing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Good night, everybody. See you
Adios,
next week.
guys.
Adios.
Love.